Excellent. Hello and welcome to the 5 p.m. workshop for the Tuesday, February 7th, 2023 Selectmen's Meeting. We're going to start off this evening with a presentation on net energy billing credit services performed by Competitive Energy Services. So we have Charlie Agnew and Lauren Gray from Competitive Energy. They will give us a presentation. Hello, how are you?
Thanks for having us. I'm Charlie and this is Lauren, if you hadn't guessed that. And we've been hired by the town and schools to help manage the net energy billing credit agreements that you folks have entered. And so we just wanted to provide a bit of a report on our findings. Maybe I'll just chat through that and some potential changes you might want to make going forward. So we'll maybe I do. Okay, here we are. So we had a summary slide of who Competitive Energy Services is. We are an independent energy consulting company based in Portland. We do energy procurement, so we help the town and schools purchase natural gas and electricity supply. We also have services in around tracking and reporting, which is really what we're talking about here, and managing a couple long-term contracts you have with Rumford Solar LLC. But we do represent you. We don't represent the power company or anyone else. We're trying to align our interests with yours. And in doing so, just a quick education on the net energy billing program in general. This was established through law back in 2019, or I should say modified through a change in law in 2019 that allowed an electricity customer, in this case, let's say the town, to monetize or take value from a solar project or renewable energy project of any kind that was built anywhere within Central Maine Power service territory. So you're recognizing that it's challenging to build solar at scale or expensive to build solar at scale. The objective of this program was to match customers with renewable energy projects. And the way they did that was to create a value for a kilowatt hour generated from one of these projects in the net energy billing program. And the methodology for calculating that value is really based on the general price of electricity. So they take a portion of the Central Maine Power charge for a small general service customer, plus the standard offer supply charge. Those two numbers combined equal the value of a net energy billing credit per kilowatt hour. That formula is baked into the legislation, and it also gets adjusted every year. So the value of the kilowatt hours that are generated from this offsite project vary every year, and they are indexed to the price of electricity. So electricity prices go up, the value of the credits you've signed up for are also gonna go up. The value of electricity goes down, same thing, the value of the credits are gonna go down. Again, these rates are published by the Public Utilities Commission annually, each December for the subsequent or following year. We have basically 4 years of history in this program. You guys can focus on small and medium accounts. Those are the customer rate classes that the town has. You think about the majority of your larger volume accounts falling in CMP's medium class category, and then you have small accounts as well. And you can see there's been quite a dramatic change in the compensation or the energy billing rate in the first 4 years, starting at 13 cents a kilowatt hour, now jumping up to 24 cents per kilowatt hour. So the value of these credits has jumped as electricity prices have gone up. So just a point to make on that. I don't know the format of the meeting here, but feel free to interrupt me at any point if anyone has any questions. So the town and schools have entered this bill credit agreement with the project Rumford Solar. The way this works, you own a share of the project output. That project gets metered on a monthly basis, and you own effectively a share of that metered electricity each month. The electricity itself goes on to Central Maine Power's grid, and CMP, through this energy billing program, issues you this credit. You know, the rate I just described, the value of the credit I just described, but the volume is tied back to the contract that you have with Nexamp, who is the project owner. And in exchange for that credit on your CMP bill, so you used to have a bill that was $10, now you received a credit and you have a bill that's $0. In exchange for that credit, you're paying back the project 72% of the value of the credit. So you just got a $10 credit, you pay $7.20 back to the project. And the difference is what the town benefits in the form of financial savings in that in the difference in that transaction. If you've understood all that, then you've got the whole, picture here. I've only got 10 minutes, so I'm just gonna keep going here to the punchline. So just to share effectively what the town and schools have signed up for, I don't know if there's any interest in knowing what the school's done, but they're in a similar, slightly different situation. We've got a couple focus on the columns right now. We've got annual usage for all the town and school accounts in the first column. We've got the anticipated generation from the Rumford Solar Project in the second column, and this is estimated. This is going to be based on the system performance and literally how much sun shines, and obviously there's some seasonality to that generation, but over the course of 12 months, the way that project and facility was designed, it will produce about 9.1 million kilowatt hours per year. And the town and schools own, 15 and 19% share, respectively, of the output of that facility. And the last column is basically that share multiplied by the annual generation. So the first thing to point out here is that you have, at least the town has a greater share of kilowatt hours coming from the project than you have electricity load. Okay, the annual usage is just over 1 million kilowatt hours. If the facility produces at its designed capacity, it's gonna generate 1.4 million kilowatt hours. And the schools are a little bit closer in terms of like being 1 for 1 on their usage and their share of the project. So where this becomes an issue, we've done a little bit of modeling in terms of the credit value, which I had shared with you back on a few slides up. So credit values for medium and small accounts, basically 24 cents a kilowatt hour, okay? Multiplied by the annual generation, and in this first column, I've given you what we anticipate for credits applied to your CMP accounts in calendar year 2023, so $337,000. The cost of those credits, you're gonna pay based on the credits you receive, 72% of the value, that's per the contract. So you're paying 72% of the value back to the project. That's the third column, payment to developer. 72% of 337 is $243,000. Okay, so that's what the town is liable for in terms of payments this year, or an estimated value. The issue that we have here is that based on the anticipated electricity consumption and your cost, is that you only have $215,000 worth of utility liability. We think you're gonna spend $215,000 with CMP this year, which means you're getting $330,000 of credits applied to only $215,000 worth of cost. And that differential is effectively lost credit value. You know, CMP is not going to issue you a check for the difference. The credits are gonna live on these CMP bills. They're basically stuck there. You're gonna develop negative balances on the CMP bill. And at the same time, owe still that payment back to the developer. So, you know, absent some change here, you know, without the solar, you would have spent $215,000 with the utility. In this circumstance, you're gonna pay $243,000, so this wasn't a savings, this is, you know, gonna be more expensive. But, you know, the good news here is that this contract is very valuable. There's been a lot of projects that have stumbled in their development. Obviously, any opportunity to save 28% of you know, you're on a credit like this is something that's extremely valuable. So the town has options. This is not a dog of a contract. It's something that would be easily transferable. But something, you know, absent some action, you know, we're gonna basically recommend that the town consider a few different options here, recognizing that I'm burning through some time. I just wanted to get to the discussion point. So, you know, the options that the town might have here are to basically permanently assign a portion of the contract to someone else, you know, another utility customer, for example. You know, the other opportunity would be, you know, if there was a way to increase, you know, your electricity consumption. And this concept, you know, is difficult in the short term, but thinking about, you know, electrification, you know, utilizing heat pumps, electric vehicle chargers, how can you do some of the work that you're already doing with natural gas or some other fuel and convert that to electricity so that instead of spending $214,000 a year, you can get that cost up and monetize the value of the credits you're expecting. But that's probably something that's gonna take multiple years, and so I think there needs to be discussion about an interim step between now and when you could theoretically increase your costs through electrification efforts. You know, some assignment of these credits to another buyer, I think, is gonna be necessary, or you're just gonna be faced with the kind of the situation that we've outlined here. So let me pause there. I know you gave us 10 minutes, so I wanna be respectful.
You have 20 plus 10. So you're
Oh,
rolling
really?
just fine. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I had
We've got
20?
till 5:30.
Oh, no kidding, alright, shoot. Well, let's chit chat then.
So a question, where the school was closer to its output and its credit.
Yep.
They're probably not gonna lose as much as we did.
So the situation with the schools is that, you know, they're gonna get, these numbers right, so then they're gonna get $334,000 worth of credits, but they only owe, these numbers don't, is this right? Yeah, sorry, so yeah, $334,000 worth of credits, $250,000 of payments to the developer. You know, conceptually, they could have saved the difference between those numbers, the 334 and the 250, right, which is close to 84,000, something like that. But their costs aren't going to be 334, they're gonna be 302. So in this situation, there's some credits that are left on the table, but they're still going to realize $52,000 worth of savings. Does that make sense? So I think you pointed that out well, which is, yes, this is not harmful to the schools, but there's additional opportunity on the table. About $34,000 worth of other, or 32,000 of other credits that could be used if possible.
Can we sell them? Can we turn them over to somebody else? Can we get rid of what we have?
Yeah, in terms of selling them, you can't get the credit off the utility bill. There's no way to transfer it
I
from the
mean,
bill somewhere
our
else.
ownership of it.
But you can, correct, we could redirect portion of your share, the 19% or 15% shares. Those could be assigned to others, yes.
By assigned, you mean selling them?
I haven't ever, I've heard the question asked before, like, can we sell this
Yeah.
contract? I've never brokered, or I've never brokered a contract like that. So I don't know if you can expect to get money out of the situation, if that was what you were looking for, but certainly a free
So
assignment.
what would we get for assigning? We'd get a better credit?
Yeah, you'd optimize the credits that you're receiving, yep.
Can we go back to the town slide?
Yep.
So that's showing a $52,000 surplus for the school. And that's a $27,000 deficit,
Right,
$28,000.
They own more percentage of,
You use more electricity.
why did we buy this?
The more electricity you use, the better the deal is.
So,
I know that's what I got caught in gym about.
how do we do this? Was this the same one that we were told we could sell the credits, or is this a different deal?
That was a
That was a different
That was a
thing.
different one.
Two.
Yeah, that was, I thought that was next amp, I'm just trying to get it straight.
Could you
I thought
explain
it was
to me
the
again
other
how we
two.
got these? When did we buy these?
It was in process when Bill was here and finalized as I walked in the door, so I don't have the history on it.
So we just purchased them.
The project just started operating in August. I think there was a bit of a runway between when you signed the agreements and when the project came live, but yeah.
And what were we told when we bought it? What was the projection? Do you recall at this time?
Well, I mean, I'm sure the projection was we can save 28% of the credit values we get. That's my presumption. We also were not involved at that time. I mean, that's the possibility here, is that you can get $300,000 worth of credits and a 28% discount on that. There's just some optimization that needs to be done to get there.
Look, I'm not smart on this stuff, so, but like to save, like, I thought the whole purpose, we went solar, this whole project, save money and then save the environment and save this. Now, in this particular place, we're gonna lose money, but if we use more electricity, we're better off. I mean, that just makes zero sense,
Which
let's
means
use
spending
more.
more money for infrastructure
Right, right.
upgrades,
To-
heat pumps, the
to-
implication, I mean,
right, to
this seems
do-
like a Ponzi scheme to me, really.
Yeah.
To do less,
really.
I'm just not I honestly don't understand that,
Yeah, so.
I mean, I'd like you
yeah,
to pay my I just got $1,000 bill from CMP today, so I'm like.
How long is that contract
For a
for this,
house.
or is it forever? Do you have any idea?
It's 20 years, it's a 20-year agreement.
And what happens if we went out of the contract?
Well, I don't believe there's any termination penalties, so if you wanna get out of this contract, you could. I mean, that's effectively what we're.
So with no cost, we can get out and save ourselves money?
Before we do that, can we just reduce our
Yeah,
liability?
all we're talking about is reducing the amount of credits that you're purchasing. I mean,
Right.
that's what we would recommend. And-
Okay.
And yeah, that's
All right.
that's an easy option.
Yeah.
Yep. My idea about increasing the amount of electricity that you use, and I don't, let's try and keep this on track here. The idea is that the concept around electrification right now is one where we have the opportunity to make some progress or advance the reduction in the amount of fuels we burn that emit carbon by converting the consumption of either natural gas or, let's say, gasoline or diesel consuming boilers, buses, trucks, cars, those sort of things, to electricity, and then buying all of the electricity from a renewable source. Okay, this is kind of the pathway that would be the concept of, like, supporting electrification, carbon reduction. And, you know, where the town was interested in that, you know, as others are, this creates an opportunity where you have low-cost electricity, right? You can basically buy your electricity for 72 cents on the dollar. So it presents an avenue for electrification where you can take advantage of the technologies, whether they were heat pumps or converting any town fleet vehicles to EVs that would provide some economic benefit and put you on a path to lower carbon consumption. But that's not what I'm here to convince you of. I'm just saying that's some people view that as an opportunity in your shoes, but the real thing that needs to be addressed is that you need to do one of two things. You need to buy fewer credits, or you would otherwise need a higher amount of electricity costs to take advantage of the contract that you're in. And that's kind of the bottom line.
Charlie, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it possible to buy fewer credits in the year now in which we need fewer, but retain the possibility of the amount of credits that we actually signed up for initially for future use?
Yeah, that potentially it's a bit tricky. What you're thinking about is basically a temporary assignment of the credits. So you would effectively need to find a partner that would be willing, or a counterparty that would be willing to take a credit and then give it back at some point. Yeah. So, you know, conceptually, we've kicked around the idea of like the sewer district or the sanitary district as, you know, a place that you know, the town would benefit from, obviously, if their electricity costs went down. I know they've expressed interest, you know, a relationship like that, I think, could potentially serve that role. Otherwise, anyone that has an opportunity to take, you know, a 20-year contract that's gonna guarantee some electricity savings, they are probably gonna not wanna give that up.
Right, but if you enter into the agreement up front, that is a 3-year contract or something like that.
Yep.
I would think, I can see that down the road, the town doesn't wanna be rushed into electrification, but we will be heading that way. And our electricity needs will go up, and we will like to have that 28% discount on the full amount used.
Yeah, smart.
And I'm also, just one other quick thing, I'm a little surprised by the estimated amount dollar-wise of electricity use for the coming year. We based it originally on 2019, and the dollar electricity expense that year was $192,000, and that was at 60% less per kilowatt hour than we're paying now.
Mm-hmm.
So does that represent all of our accounts or just part of them, or?
Yeah, we can take any input you all may have on that number. We can share our assumptions about it, but yeah, effectively it's just over about 21 cents per kilowatt hour all in, all inclusive.
Right.
I don't have it here, but it's really $1 to $1.
Well, I mean, I don't like losing $28,000 a year in taxpayer money, so I guess my question is, what are we gonna do to prevent that loss? We're talking about, for electrification, huge amounts of money that needs to be expended. I mean, we're already, a 10% increase projected over our budget, not that we've gotten through it, but I mean, so what, are we supposed to carry a loss for, at 5 years, it's almost $150,000 in lost money if it took that long to get up there. Now, I understand that we can reassign it, but obviously we were told that this was gonna save us money up front. So are we gonna make some adjustment and then be told we still didn't meet the mark? I mean, this kind of seems like a red herring is the expression to me?
It's a good one.
Yeah, we
And
entered
the solar
this,
companies in town, I mean, in my opinion, we've had constant problems with them. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm getting tired of the solar. It all just seems like a big scam. Every time we turn around, it's lost money or it's broken promises, and everybody, you know, I'm just sick of hearing it, frankly. And I know that you're just a consultant, but that's just my honest opinion. It's-
Right, we just entered into this.
Yeah.
So we entered into it thinking just a few months ago, right? If you,
No.
well, you're saying that when it was just coming up and getting ready,
But I
when,
think it's a year, I believe it's been almost 2 years.
well, I
we
know that
started
she
the
came in
project.
front of us in 2
Right,
years.
but I think that's when we started.
Oh, it
It was
started?
before I got on board.
Right.
Yeah,
We.
either way,
Right.
you're right, either way.
It's not good, I'm
It's
not
not good, here we are, right here,
So
being encouraged to go, and where do you think the electric comes from?
I have a role which is to provide you all with good guidance here. And the good guidance would be that you have some money to save in this contract. And it would be foolish to shed it all together. There's a simple change that would need to happen to assign a portion of what you've committed to another buyer. And, you know, as simple as that, and then this deal is back in the money. And the other thing that, you know, I point out is that there has been zero financial harm. In fact, you guys have already been benefiting from this project operational. It's kind of interesting, I mean, there's a cyclical nature to both the production and your energy costs, where there was a short period in time this summer where the project was generating. You developed some credits as a result of that, but this winter season, we have a little bit of time before the problem is gonna generate, and that's why we're having this conversation today. As the days get longer, you know, the solar is gonna produce more, and that's when, you know, by this summer, this problem is really gonna start to exacerbate itself. So we have plenty of time, we have an idea of what needs to be done. And I think we're just here really just to present an option to fix fix the situation and set you guys on good track.
So how much would we have to assign to somebody else?
So I think that's our concluding slide.
It'd have to be 10%.
5.5.
The town would be going from about a 15 to a 10%
10, right, yeah, it says it
share.
right there.
Yep. Yep, exactly.
So do we have to find a buyer for that share, or does the solar company take it back and resell it?
Well, we do have to find someone to assign it to. That doesn't have to be your obligation. I think we've had some conversation again with the sanitary district, which is kind of a perfect home where, you know, them saving money is effectively, you know, to the benefit of the community. So that would be the first place we would go with it, assuming that could work out in that.
And we don't have to buy it back. I mean, we don't have to have it assigned back to us.
Well, I get that would be up to you. I don't see in the near term that, well, I mean, there's kind of like A plus B plus C needs to happen, and I guess until A and B happen, we can't really talk about C. I mean, conceptually, anything can be done, but
So do you know in fact that the sanitary district is interested in,
Mike, had you had a conversation with them?
No, we don't know yet.
so we don't, that's a,
If I could ask, so Charlie,
Yeah.
are you familiar with any situations where there's a public-private partnership or public-public? And I'm thinking of our neighboring communities perhaps that we may be able to assign to take this burden from us. There may be some adjoining communities that we may be able to help.
Yeah, I mean, if there's some relationship that is valuable like that, absolutely. You know, again, it's not a burden, it's basically it's a valuable contract. I mean, so the town should be trying to think about, you know, what can we get out of this
Correct.
rather than, you know,
Right.
what are we gonna do with it?
Right.
You know, hot potatoes.
Right, if we were to offer to someone
Yeah.
and we had something in return.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
That would be my focus,
Yep,
find out
yep.
what you can do with it.
Find out what we can do it,
That
cause
percentage.
somebody is looking, they're spending enough that they could use some more
Yeah,
credits.
exactly.
So, yeah, that makes sense.
Could we work with the Chamber of Commerce or the Senior
Thinking
Center
about, you know,
or?
public-private or a public-public, and that could be a neighboring community or something
Yeah,
where we
right.
could derive, or maybe some partners just down the street even, as we
Yep.
think about.
That sounds good.
So it'll give us something to do. Great.
So if we have that idea and we wanna do it, do we go through you or do we? How does that work?
I'm happy to help in any way I can, yeah, if you have some ideas, you know, I think in terms of you know, sometimes the process for entering a long-term contract like this can take some time, right? So we also need to be cognizant of like a municipality, for
Right.
example, that might have, you know, a time and process oriented, you know, to get to a decision, you know, this is something we need to act on in a matter of a couple of months versus, you know, 6 months to a year ideally.
But are there any geographical limitations or only
No,
through?
anywhere
is it
in the
this-
Central Maine Power Service
the CMP
territory.
grid,
So
okay.
it's quite unlimited. I mean, if you just said, Charlie, can you find us a customer? I can give you, I could place this with a dozen of our clients.
Charlie, could you find us a
Yeah, I
customer?
mean, that's that's what I mean, I like the sanitary district,
Yeah.
and I've, you know, I guess we have had a separate conversation
Sure.
about the concept of this, and it was well received, so that to me seems like the win-win, and if that runs into a dead end, then I'll go in and, you know, come back to you with a
They're not
different
using
direction.
much power right now, they're on generator, but opportunity will present.
Okay, well, hopefully
Okay.
that changes, so, alright, so that sounds like a win-win.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for letting us know about that.
Thank you. Yeah, and this was, I brought this to the board, Jody and I had a conversation with Lauren and Charlie, and it was one of those, you needed to be very aware of this and then kind of offer some direction, so we'll pursue some of these partnerships we talked about.
Just don't lose any money. Well, thank you again.
Yeah, you're
Really
welcome.
appreciate anything else for us, sir?
That was it for now, unless you wanna pepper us with anything else.
No.
We'll,
Yeah.
Okay,
Excellent.
great. I'll be able to go get my daughter, and Lauren has, I don't know, more fun things.
Well, tell Nick over at the sanitary district that he has to have it.
Yeah.
It's the best thing
Oh,
ever.
yeah. I mean, he gets easily excited about this.
Well,
Thank you both
thanks,
very
everyone.
much.
Nice to
Thanks
see
again,
guys.
Charlie and Lauren. You have a good night.
This is scary.
Well,
Thanks so much, I really appreciate it.
next up for 5:30 block of time, we have a workshop to conduct to consider a proposed easement and land swap between the town and Cardinelli's Real Estate LLC relating to portions of property located on or near Harbor Road. We have the Cardinellis with us here this evening.
How we doing?
Excellent. Well, Mike, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Sure, yeah, this is a proposed land swap potentially that we had a workshop with the board, probably about a month and a half ago, November-ish, I think was the time period. And the proposal by the property owner of Fisherman's Catch Restaurant is to swap some land. So there are two parcels that Fisherman's Catch is looking at to settle with the town. It's really a form of lot line agreement to some extent, because the sideline of Harbor Road, it's an old sideline that was established in the 1700s. And there's a bow in the right of way here, and the original right of way actually went through a portion of the front of your building. By state statute, your building is protected, but it does place the town right away right across the front of your building, as you know. This is a copy of a portion of your boundary survey, you had your surveyor complete. So the thought of the swap would be for the town to convey this area to Fisherman's Catch and convey this area to Fisherman's Catch. And this area, the board already agreed to a license in the past on to accommodate their outdoor seating and their food truck area. So they've held a license with the town to operate there for a couple of years now. And before that, it was a COVID emergency ordinance that allowed them to do it as well. In exchange for those two pieces of land, they would be conveying this portion of their land to the town, which is a older portion of Lower Landing Road that extends out to where an old town wharf was, that was established in the 1700s as well. So there's a land swap component, just land for land. Also part of the exchange was discussed was the area of current public town parking in the front that's hatched on the plan. At the last workshop, it was discussed for that to be a longer term lease. The length of that lease, was to be discussed, the terminology in the lease was to be, worked out with an attorney that would be sent to the, of theirs, that would be sent to the town attorney review. Since that workshop, the topic has come up of doing an easement versus a lease, which spurred this additional workshop. Because at the previous workshop, it was really just a land swap, and then the board was open to talking about a lease over the parking, but you wanted to see the details on it, of what that would involve. Now it's progressed to talking about an easement being proposed, and the Cardinellis have brought their attorney here tonight to talk about that, as well as a town attorney is here as well to talk about the differences between easement and lease and what that would potentially mean to the town. To give a little more background on it too, at the last meeting, we talked about that there needed to be a little correction done on the plan down in this area to make sure the town had full access to this corner, because the way it was on the plan, it was just like a 4-foot area where we could access the strip and not cross Rachel Carson land. So a slight adjustment to the plan needs to be done there. But I also, looked at an old aerial from 1975 where it was a good image. You can see the, Fisherman's Catch was a new building, back at that period of time, but you can much more easily see where the old Lower Landing Road went, and you can see the old remnants of the landing that's partly sticking out of the dirt in that area and partly into the water. And it was just a good aerial image that doesn't have the vegetation that's out there now. So you could more see the bed of the old road and that old wharf area has real historical significance. But that's all I want to say for a kickoff, and I'll leave it up to Cardinellis and town attorney to speak further on it.
Yeah, Mike did a really nice job in his memorandum to lay it all out. It's my understanding that this came to light when the pathway went in. Is that right, Mike, in terms of the location of the road?
Well, actually, when we had a boundary survey done of the road right away, long before the sidewalk project went into effect, because town did have questions on where the right of way was. And as a result of, I think, the town having our survey done, you'd been working with a surveyor for years as well, but there was a conflict between the two plans. So that's where it really came to light, was the town had a survey done, you had a survey done, and it showed the difference, right in front of the restaurant, of the conflict there between the building and the right-of-way line. Since that survey, we got that federal grant to help us build the sidewalk, and now the sidewalk on the opposite side of the road is all installed.
So I think that up to that time, so technically the restaurant was built, a portion of it was built within the old right of way, right?
Yes.
Because I don't think anybody really contemplated the right of way would have extended to that area. Anybody that's been down to the restaurant, the parking right in front of the building has always kind of been there for the restaurant use. And the town's been nice, in the past to talk about granting a license, but since it's a land exchange, we just thought we'd bring the idea. I tried to float it, with Mike and both of the Mikes, just to see, what you guys would feel about it. So, it's just, since there's gonna be an exchange of land, it seemed like this would be a good opportunity to maybe, make it something that, the people that own the restaurant now and in the future can rely upon, that their patrons can park out front. I don't think there's a lot of need for public parking right in that area. So, it makes sense that it would continue to be, probably utilized by the restaurant. But again, we're not trying to bullhead our way in here, it's just a feel out thing. I drafted the easement just to give you something to look at. That's all subject, Leah probably, hasn't had a chance to dig into it. But, it would be that they would have a right to use it. And instead of it being a lease, and having to talk about like how long the lease would be, and then it would have to come back, in the future to renegotiate the lease, and it would just be something permanent. That means it's a co-use of the property. I mean, town people will still have the right to park down there anytime they want, so town's not giving up any rights in terms of, the public, so to speak, but then this way the restaurant, knows and the future owners know that they don't have to rely upon a lease, that it is an easement and something that would go with the land. So hopefully you'd have an appetite to talk about it, and that's what we're here, is just to, get some feedback as to whether that's palatable. I know it ultimately has to go to the voters, even the easement has to go to the voters. And the difference is, probably most of you know, if it's a license or a lease, it's for a certain term, and that can be terminated, so the easement just creates it as part of the rights of the property to continue to be able to park out front there, along with whatever town use, whatever the town would, wanna use it for, you could push snow on it, you still have your rights, but we also, they would be granted, some assurance that those parking spaces could always be used.
The one difference that I would see with an easement versus a lease, I mean, we know these folks, they've been in town for a long time, but if and when they decide that it's time to go to Florida for good and they sell the place, they might sell it, somebody may put a hotel there, somebody, we don't know what somebody may do.
Right.
And with a lease to these folks, gives the town the opportunity to either say, yes, we wanna release it to the new owners, or no, we don't. Versus an easement, the easement is always gonna be there. I mean, I can't,
It's a fair point, Bob, I mean, I see what you're saying. I mean, you could limit it to, if you want, I mean, this is just a negotiation, you can say as long as it's a restaurant, so it wouldn't be, I mean, you may feel differently if it was a hotel, if someone was putting a big development, now they're using that. So, these folks are, dedicated to continuing it as a restaurant, and I think the value is in the property as well.
and I hope they continue for a long time, because I love going there, but, I mean,
Right.
I'm just looking at the future.
Yeah, no, and that's what you have to think
So
about,
what-
is all the things that can happen, so it could have some, condition in it. However you wanna condition it to say that it would only be in place.
But that's only, that's only my feeling, I don't know the rest of the board, but that's just, was my first thought when I read it. But I thought the lease was probably a good idea.
I just have one clarification on the little triangle piece that here it says revision needed, has that revision been done, or is this part of the?
No, that's a plan revision that'll need to be done. The current plan we have, the line goes right out to this point, and there's only a small length that's common to what we would get to the road right away. So this was after our last workshop.
Yeah.
This was a recommendation I had sent on, but they haven't actually changed the plan yet.
I think there is a
There is,
revision
but I
that
don't-
we
I
can
don't know.
share with you.
I don't think it's
Whatever access the town wants, they would have.
Yeah, I don't think it's as long as that, but I don't think we had any clarification on
Where it
what
would
we were
be.
looking for distances.
Yeah, when I colored this up, I just lined it up with the existing telephone pole so that you would have a reference to where I had at least
That's my
highlighted.
thought when we were done it today.
Okay, cause that would be important, otherwise it would be really difficult to use that nice little section.
Yes.
What's the width on the one, the new one? We have a different plan for some reason it didn't get sent out.
We had something that our surveyor sent off that would have had two dots towards that point. It may have been a 6 foot, 8 foot path, which may not still be enough, but it should have been in there.
Yeah, easy enough change to make, just to make sure that there's a nice connection.
Sure.
If the town ever did, put a path in there to reestablish something out to the old landing.
Maybe clamming.
Is there a specific width that it needs to be?
Just whatever the board feels is reasonable. I mean, I would think you'd want at least 20 feet there to make sure that you had some flexibility with the path. Just the pole made a nice, I won't say natural feature to, everyone would know where it was, but, poles can move. And it would, wanna be monumented with survey markers and whatnot, but
I would think if we ever wanted to put a path out there, we might need to bring equipment over that spot, so as long as it would accommodate
Right.
that.
Because people go kayaking from there and then go clamming or whatever.
It's gonna be pretty minimal what the town can do there, just because there's marsh on both sides and
Right.
even the elevation of the old roadway is really close to the high water mark, so it's, we won't be able to do a lot of improvement there. I mean, just a small walking path, maybe a historical sign at the end of it, you know, noting what's out there and, you know, a few history buffs could go out there and check it out. I know I've kayaked up to the landing on the water side and it's a really neat feature out there, it is.
Is the depth still enough to accommodate a ship as they did back in the old days?
At high tide,
Is it?
sure.
Yeah.
Low tide, not so much.
So,
Well, even back then, the only time they could come in and out was during high
Mhm.
tide.
Yeah, the ships,
At times they would just, the ships would be grounded and they'd have to wait.
yeah, or they had their little boats that they'd oar into the landing and the bigger boats would be either outside the barrier or just inside the river barely.
There's still some remnants of the boatyards up there, Mike? You know?
Further up the river,
That's what I heard,
there
yeah.
is some remnants and there's actually a couple of old wrecks buried in the sand out there. Derelicts, they had stripped off all the valuables and they laid the ships on the, banking across from the
Wasn't someone
shipyard.
who didn't pay.
See that too?
I just wanna make sure that, I'm looking at the smaller map that we have in here, and it has the red dotted line that shows where it says, in this one, proposed lease from the town, is that, does that red dotted line on this, I don't know if you can see it on that one, the red dotted line, Mike, on this one, is that the part that's being proposed to have a lease on it?
Yes, the
Okay,
lease or easement.
So what's
Yep.
this piece right here?
That's still just part of the town right away.
Okay,
So open to
So-
the public parking that's
right,
there
that's what I was
right
just
now.
gonna say, so if we had this connected,
Mhm.
and we would still be able to have people that could park there with kayaks or whatever, and if they wanted to walk out there with it, they could.
Yeah, there's
That was
plenty,
still-
there's plenty of room there for at least 4 or 5 parking spaces.
Okay, that's what I was,
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure that was there.
And can I just ask a clarifying question, Alan, I think I heard you say that it's not, you're not looking for an exclusive easement. So
Right.
that's important to understand, right?
And I thought it was proposed as an
Yeah, that,
exclusive.
I
yeah.
just assumed, you know what they say about that.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, a relevant point for this
I thought
board
it
to
was
hear.
that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just with respect to the easement versus lease, I mean, I don't need to school you on that, it sounds like you really understand the bundle of sticks, right, which is bigger and you know, obviously an easement is a much bigger bundle of sticks that the town would be essentially giving over. Alan already mentioned the timeframe that whereas it runs with the land, an easement, a lease, you can have the opportunity to have a time limited. Also the parties, I understand that an easement can be limited as to the use, but there may be a concern that, hey, you know the Cardinelli very well, you appreciate and respect them, but if it's a restaurant and you don't know who's coming in, that might be something that, it's not so much the use that you feel confident in, it may be the parties, right? So that's something to think about. Another difference I think that's important just for your consideration, I'm not lobbying either way, just food for thought, is the fact that with a lease, there are default provisions, right? If somebody's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, then there are provisions where, you can terminate the lease upon notice and certain things being done. Whereas an easement, that's not the case. If somebody is overburdening the easement or doing things that they should not, then there's not an automatic remedy unless, Alan, I know you're a real estate attorney, if I'm wrong on that, you'll correct me, but that's the kind of thing that you'd have to go to court to deal with. And again, I'm not saying that that's going to happen, it's just, the lawyers, parade of horribles is our job to do the Chicken Little thing. But just things to think about is that obviously giving an easement is a much bigger conveyance, so to speak, than a lease would be.
There's also gonna be a definition of its use. So it's not like, the next restaurant owners would do something different with it that you may not like. It's just gonna be parking. It's gonna be coexisting parking for the public and for the restaurant patrons. And there's nothing else that can be done there. So in some respects, it's nice that you have good feelings about the Cardinellis. But, I don't know what any other restaurant owner would do that would be in violation of it, or would make you unhappy. That you wouldn't want to give them that, or that they would misuse it in some way. I don't think it's the kind of nature of this kind of use that you know, I think you'd have to worry too much about who holds it, because it's defined in what can happen there, which is basically all you can do is park vehicles there. Now, I mean, Leah brings up a good point though, because they will have the obligation of maintaining it. So if they didn't maintain it, we could have a reversion in there that, you know, if they didn't maintain it and they didn't properly maintain it, the town could give them notice and they could exterminate
Yeah.
they can extinguish the easement.
And these are the kinds of things that the attorneys will go through, but one of the biggest concerns that I have, of course, as a town attorney, is thinking about giving maintenance and repair rights or duties to a party that isn't the town. I'm thinking the Maine Tort Claims Act, and you know, obviously you're not necessarily wanting a private party to be maintaining public, like paving, plowing, those kinds of issues that we can hash these things out. But you know, obviously the town would wanna have an indemnification provision. Bob, as the expert, they'd have to be named as an additional insured, and we can hammer these things out. But you know, but that would be the case regardless of whether it was a lease or an easement, so.
Here's one of our concerns, that if this walking path were to happen, it'd be more of a draw in the area, more so than the walking path already is on the other side. So if the idea is that people will come down here and park to use that, then I believe this easement becomes even more important to the restaurant, that they have some sort of control or, you know, some guarantees that there's parking there for the restaurant. That's, I guess, something
But
we're concerned about.
It wouldn't be exclusively, is it exclusive or not? Cause I thought it was, but that they're asking for, but is it not?
That's I think both of our assumptions, Mike and mine, but I heard Alan say that it's not exclusive, and so I think clearly that's a really important piece that needs to be identified and discussed.
We would have no intention of signage, and we've always assumed that people park near the restaurant and use the walking path, and you would never tell anyone they couldn't do that, so we're looking for some guarantees that there's gonna be parking there for the restaurant. It's like we don't know what the next tenants would do or wouldn't do, if you didn't like them or not, but this would kind of give us the.
Is that the only parking for there's some on to the left
Yeah,
though,
it's on
right?
the left,
But,
but this is certainly the parking that makes the most sense for the restaurant.
right, exactly.
For the seating, it's kind of, you know, part of
Right.
what you need.
So this request is to have it only being used for the restaurant?
No, it would be, it's a co-use. It's like, and it's not a perfect example, but let's say you have a right of way to someone's property and there's several people that use the right of way. Each of them have a right to drive on that road. So, the public, you know, if there was someone that wanted to just come and start walking on that nice path that you've got going to the water, you know, they could do that. That's their right, so it's not gonna be an exclusive restaurant parking area. It's gonna be the restaurant patrons have a right to park there and no one can take that away, but at the same time, it's still gonna be town-owned land. It's not gonna be like you're deeding the property to us, all you're doing is giving us rights to use it. That's the difference.
Leah, if this were a lease, would it be exclusive use to the restaurant?
I think those would just be written into, those are the kinds of terms that could be negotiated, right?
But not necessarily, because that's what I'm hearing, not necessarily.
Right, and for me, I mean, it kind of begs the question, if the general public has the right to park there,
Why do we wanna do this?
and I'm saying, and I'm sure Alan and Cardinelli will explain to you why, but if there is already a public right to park there and patrons of the restaurant are members of the public, I guess that begs a question for just to be answered.
Well, could that feasibly be revoked? At some point?
Just like a protection, so you can say, well, today or now going forward, you couldn't park here, like, so it's I guess protection for us. So co-use, but you can't put a sign up saying no parking one day. I think that's kind of, we don't mind sharing it, but we don't wanna ever have it taken away.
And your feeling is that a lease, no matter how long it is, could have that taken away?
I think if we have different people and like on the board, you just never know. So I think just an easement seems
safer for us, so I guess we'd have to all agree on something, but
I mean, I'd be happy to have Leah and Alan work on this lease a little bit more with some more specific terms in it. That just, that we know, you know, protects the town.
So just to clarify, I know what I saw was an easement, right? Alan, you had drafted up
I had drafted an
easement
easement, cause
agreement.
it was hard to draft a lease without knowing what the terms would be.
Understood,
Yeah,
and-
in the abstract.
And to the same extent, because we had originally conceived of it as a lease, I didn't go too deep into this easement because I just wanted, Mike and I wanted to get some guidance from the board as to which you would prefer. So I think in order to be productive, I would love to hear, because the easement language is different from a lease language just by the nature of what the nature of the beast, so to speak. So if you would give us some direction as to whether you prefer the lease or the easement, then Alan and I can put our heads together and go from there.
So the only difference, even if we did an easement and we would say that the public could park there if they wanted to or whatever, you know, saying
Non-exclusive.
not exclusive, it would be if there was any issues or they didn't comply with keep maintaining it or anything, that would be an issue with, so if I don't see the difference, if you can do that with a lease and you can do that with an easement, I understand that the lease, it gets renewed every so many years, where an easement goes on in perpetuity, but
Yeah, I mean, I just conceive, maybe I'm just being overly simple about this, I do conceive of them as different. When I'm thinking about revocation provisions and those kinds of things, those to me make more sense and are more natural in a lease because it's limited in scope and time. Whereas easements, you know, they don't traditionally have revocation provisions, they have reversionary interests and that kind of thing, but not a, well, if you don't do what we say, then we're gonna revoke this. I don't, and again, Alan, I defer to you on that piece just because you draft more of these than I do. But that to me is not necessarily a characteristic of an easement, that's more in the nature of a lease. But
Well, but I think it's the nature, I think you have to still get back to the nature of the rights, of what you need to be
right.
giving here, which are not things that you're gonna have to monitor and really worry about having to take these rights back. And I don't understand, I don't know what the scenario would be that you would ever want to take it back. But you know, to the extent that that you thought that it would be good, you know, as Bob brought up, you know, if it was a hotel, maybe you'd feel differently about it. You know, but when these folks bought the restaurant, they thought those parking spaces came with the restaurant. Most people would think that that's parking that the restaurant can have, it's sort of the way it's been used. That doesn't mean it's right, but I mean, that's sort of what the expectation is. It doesn't look like the town would ever need to ever widen the road or do anything from a town standpoint for a purpose to ever utilize that land for anything else. So, I mean, I think making it a little bit more permanent, I don't think is really creating much more risk for the town that something bad's gonna happen. I think if you have a lease, then that's just, you know, temporary, and that, you know, makes it hard for them if they're gonna go sell this to someone and they say, well, you've got this parking in front, but it's a lease, and you know, I don't know how many years you'd be giving a lease for, but you know, at some point that's gonna expire, and you know, who knows what the Board of Selectmen in the future may do, and so there's just some uncertainty there that they thought. I mean, this is a land exchange. This is, you know, they're giving up 15,000 square feet and they're getting other pieces of land back, so I mean, this is kind of a real estate deal in a sense that's being proposed here, so why not make this easement part of the real estate deal, this trading that's going on here? It's an opportunity to, you know, address some needs here for a business that, you know, wants to have a little bit more certainty in how they can operate.
either way, we'd wanna see the language.
Of course, and again, you know, if it's a lease that you want, these folks will be happy to take the lease. They're not saying we have to have an easement, but I think it was worth discussing, at least from my perspective, to create something that just maybe a little bit more of a commitment that these folks can rely upon.
Is there a way to have you go back to work and so it's both, like somehow you know, like like work on an easement, work on at least two, like, and my other concern is if it's an easement, does that have to go to town vote, like you have to vote on it?
Both of them do.
At least would too,
The lease would be,
Both of them.
yeah, so I
I'm
think
worried
this,
with an easement in what we're discussing, because I'm halfway confused right now.
Right.
Is when you start talking about exclusive use, non-exclusive use, all this stuff, a voter going in, I'd be fearful for you people, you know, where that vote goes. I think people love Fisherman's Catch, so, you know, the townspeople do it, and but there's always that, as I know recently, you always that fear of votes, right? So that worries me too, is that well-explained votes are, you know, when somebody explains this well, usually you can win a vote, but when you don't explain it well and people don't understand why are they changing this is, I don't want, you know, there's people that walk in that booth and just say no.
they may feel the same way, Tim, on a lease.
No, they
too.
might, but I mean, a lease has been
Yeah,
what we've
lease
been
is-
doing, so they, you
yeah,
know,
at least they know, yeah.
I'm not against the easement, I wanna say that, like, I'm willing to talk about how to have that easement work. But I think we got a little work to do.
Well, I think we just need some direction, and I know the concept of an easement, but there's a little bit of sand going through the hourglass because we wanna get on the town meeting warrant. So we just need to sort of get it, so I'm happy to work on, I'm not sure, but you need to see both documents.
Well, Leah, could we leave it at this? Maybe you could get us some sort of memo on each one with your thoughts prior to our next agenda, just get it out to us via email for us to review, get it on the next agenda to discuss. That seems like the most prudent thing to do.
Are you and I will give you whatever it is that you're looking for, I just wanna make sure, are you,
Contemplate lease and easement,
just
just give us your
the
thoughts.
differences between them?
I'm not sold on either one.
Yeah.
I have not.
So
I
just
have no
a
strong feelings.
theoretical, not having two documents, but the theoretical differences
Yeah,
between
right.
those two.
I have
documents.
ideas, but again, I'm
Yeah,
not.
you bet, happy to do that.
What is, if we put any exceptions in it, is it easier in an easement or easier in that kind of thing, is it gonna be, right, okay.
Yep.
Mike, is there land behind this area if the restaurant ceased to exist for whatever reason? That could be developed that someone would need to cross over with use of an easement?
Right in front of that existing building, there's not much beyond what they do have some opportunities to expand what they have. But it would be off the back of the building somewhat. Down in this area of their lot, they have some options potentially. But neither of those would impact where the easement would be for the parking.
Could I just ask one question of the board just to get feedback? If it was a lease, what would your level of comfort be on how long the lease would be? Just so we have an idea.
My level of comfort's a long time.
Yeah, long time, right, yeah,
I mean, I would say as long as they own it.
What,
yeah, right.
Alright, but
Yeah.
I think what they wanna
And
accomplish is
renewable,
beyond,
if they try to sell it,
I'd go beyond personally, but
yeah, I mean, that's,
just if they wanna resell it and then.
yeah, I mean,
Maybe that, if we could hold the board on that, because I understand it's your goal not to have it be just as long as they own it. If that's what the board's will is, then that makes sense and that's the direction. But if there's more willingness to contemplate a longer period of time, maybe that, Alan, that would probably be really helpful, I think, to both of us.
yeah,
I'm willing to contemplate
maybe
longer with
longer
the
lease.
option for reassessment of lease in the event of sale, if
Yeah.
that helps. So I
As
As
long as
longer,
the
I mean,
property
the-
continues to be a standalone restaurant.
as long as it's a standalone restaurant.
but we're coming up on, unfortunately, we'll have
Yeah.
to cut this one off. We have a few
Are you
more.
gonna
Yes.
you have this on the agenda again, but my sense is you're not going to vote on this tonight, so you put it in case. So you're not gonna you're not gonna discuss this later?
No.
Okay, thank you for your time. It was
Absolutely,
very
thank you
helpful.
all.
Good to see you, Alan. Good to see you. See you, Tim, man, I
How
haven't
you
seen
doing?
you in a
Haven't seen you in a
long
long
time.
I actually didn't realize you were here until you started talking.
I know, everybody's good. Yes, everybody's good, nice to see you, thanks, thank you.
Let's wait for things to get settled down.
I'll leave that on the screen there.
Right. Well, that concludes our workshops. We're gonna move on to opening our regularly scheduled selectmen's meeting. We're gonna start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we're gonna advance something on our agenda and amend it this evening. We're gonna go ahead and move up under our current agenda items. We're gonna move up our FY 22 audit presentation. Auditor had the commitment that he's gonna try to make, so try to get him in and out of here. In the room. There he is. Good evening. Good evening.
Hey, fine, how are you?
Doing good, doing good.
So what's the brass tacks? How'd we do?
Did good. So I'm Ron Smith, principal with RHR Smith and Company. I think we do over half of the municipalities in the entire state of Maine, so we're here to go over your audit for 6/30/22. I'm not gonna go through 90 pages, I'll hit the highlights of it and, cover that. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
You guys got our highest opinion unmodified, so if we would have had to have found something, we would have had to modify our opinion, we didn't, a clean opinion for the town of Wells. Fund balance grew a little over north of $300,000 from 21 to 22. About a little north of $13 million is your general fund balance. About $11.4 million of that is unassigned, not attached to anything. About 1.7 is assigned, and that's for 1.6 is largely assigned for your 2023 budget and tax relief, for the town. Where do we like to see you? We like to see you 30 to 60 to 90 days of your operating budget. And given $40 million before you'd move all your money around to transfers and reserves. To put a value on that, about $3.4 million at 30 days, about 6.8 at 60 days, and a little north of about 10.3, at 90 days. So you're about a little bit more north of 90 days, more like about 110 days, with that extra $1 million. So, and certainly, going through and still coming out of a pandemic with an oceanfront community, and as you can see, trying to maintain an oceanfront community with some of your infrastructure projects that you got going on, you're in a great, healthy financial condition for sure. So you got about a little more than $3.4 million sitting in your infrastructure bond, that you still have for various projects that you got. You got about $1.1 million sitting in ARPA funds. I'm not sure if you guys used any of that in 23's, budget for any uses. So financially, and plus you've got another probably $3 to4 million sitting in other various reserve accounts. Last time I was personally here, one of the things that was a talking point is over 100 special reserve accounts that we have. We've got that whittled down to about 72 and keep whittling, there. And probably the only other talking point would be the flat grant or your Harbor Road project. You had to front that about $300,000 that you're waiting for still for reimbursement, for that. And other than that, financially, I think that you guys are just you're doing well. You're doing very, very well. So now I'll put you right up there as one of the healthiest financial communities here. Oceanfront communities in York County, Maine, and we do almost all of them, and I'll put you right up there with all the best of them. So. Yeah, and I think hats off to you all for a good fiscal prudent management, and so that's it, so.
Phenomenal.
Awesome.
Yeah, Jody does a great job, her staff, and delivers the information, when we need it and how we need it, and hats off to you all for doing that, so. Conversations all don't roll this way, and that's why this is a good night for me, so.
Well, for us too.
It's a good night for me, so.
Well, anything from the board on that?
No, that's,
No.
no, thank you,
Excellent.
Jody. Thank you.
Any follow-up, just let me know, she knows where to find me, so.
Okay, perfect.
Great pleasure.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you so
You have a
much.
nice
Thank you.
evening.
Yeah, you all too, thank you.
That's always good to get.
Now we're gonna move on to municipal officers workshop, business and public hearings. The first of which is a public hearing to establish a policy for the transfer station resident stickers. This time, we're gonna open it up for public comment. We ask that you come up to the podium, state your name, and keep any comment to 3 minutes so we can make sure everybody gets a chance to speak. Anybody from the public?
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm well. My name's Chad Nelson. I moved my family down here from Portland a while ago. I also grew up down here when I was younger. I went to the transfer station today, and the gentleman told me what was happening. Of course, I didn't know. But tell him sticker, well, $25?
$5.
$5. Yeah, big deal. But he also said the trash bags were going up 100%. Am I misinformed?
What's the number? I don't know what to throw in there.
2, 3,
$4.
They're going up $4.
They're going to $4. Is it going up for it?
It's going it's going from $2.50 currently to $4.
Yes, almost 100%. I just wasn't. It's for a guy with a baby and a lot of diapers, and yeah, I mean, you know, we pay our own fuel and excise taxes to get the car to the dump. It's just, it seems a little unreasonable. I mean, I just heard this gentleman say, "We're looking pretty good." Yep. I mean, Wells is doing great. So it just seems like a bit of a burden to put on like a working family to try to bring up a child. I'm not sure if that was helpful. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello,
Hello.
my name's Sue Butler. So I think the biggest thing hindering a go-ahead on the stickers is that it violates state law. The town of Wells will be asking residents to violate state law. State law indicates you can have the registration sticker on your windshield and one other. So in the town of Wells, we have the beach sticker, you know, a transfer station sticker. If you happen to work in a Gunkwit and need to park your car, you have a Gunkwit parking sticker. If you live in another town or something else, you have to have a sticker there. And how many stickers should we be asking people to put on their windshield, which is to like keep open so people can see? So I think a sticker won't work in this case. The other issue is do the stickers come with somebody monitoring people coming in and out? And how so? Because that's another cost. So just as an example, we went to Orange Bags a few years ago on the premise that the town employees associated with the transfer station would be paid for in full by the Orange Bag process. That was a premise that proved false. So we got back the employees, and I'm not talking about individual employees, I'm talking about the process and the premise. So the town got back those employees because it didn't work, but we didn't relook the premise. That's curious, because the only people who lose in that deal with the town are Wells residents. So I just think that we have a precedent that, we really didn't look out in the best interest of the town, and I think yet again, maybe we're on the precipice of doing that once again. And honestly, I think when people hear about the transfer station, that you don't feel the town's blood boiling amazes me. I know there's not a lot of people here to show that they're quite upset about it. Trust me, they are. But again, it comes down to state law. And we're gonna have to pay for the privilege of being illegal. That does not seem like a good place for our select board to put its residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chase?
Chris Chase, resident. Is this for financial purposes, the sticker, or identification purposes?
Identification purposes was the premise. There was some concerns that were raised that actually other towns were pointing folks down to our transfer station because we were the cheapest and we're currently running at approximately $200,000 deficit on our enterprise fund. So
That's what I thought it was for that purpose. And the $5 is to recoup your money for the cost of the sticker, of the printing of the stickers? Is there any way to make people feel better of incorporating that sticker price into the transfer station's account somewhere, somehow? You have to identify, you get a free sticker, it don't cost you $5, but you're still gonna pay it in your taxes for the transfer station, or you pay it through your bags, take it out of the bag money. But I understand if it's for identification, because you definitely need to identify the people that are coming in and out of there now with the bags, because we can't keep doing it for free, and just because my bag says Wells, I mean, it doesn't matter. If you need, maybe not call it a transfer station sticker, maybe call it a resident sticker and move it to your registrations, and when you register your car, you get a sticker that says Town of Wells resident, and you ask that you put that on there or something. I don't know. If you're gonna use town facilities, put this sticker on your car. I don't know how you can do it, but I understand people don't wanna pay an extra $5. I mean, $5 is $5, but I also know the problem of people from out of town coming to the dump, and we already have enough trouble with the dump with out of town businesses that are in there causing us issues, I believe, that should go as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, absolutely, please come up to the podium.
That gentleman reminded me. So I did follow some trucks coming in from north of Kennebunk, full trucks. And so I did go to the town clerk's office last week and I asked for the lease for the transfer station, because I wanted to understand the nuances. I asked for the lease and all attachments and modifications made to the contract. And they were very kind, and I got an 8-page document for a contract in 2014 between the town of Wells and Oceanside. There were no referred to exhibits, and there were no documents to indicate that transfer had been made and whatever town can, so it's an incomplete legal document that we have here. So I think we need to rectify that so that when any resident comes in, they can look at what are all things. Because I don't know, did we negotiate, to get some benefit from other towns coming in with their trucks here? Or is that something that the contractor's doing? Do we know the density of tonnage that's coming in from other towns? I feel like Wells residents are being asked to pay for the contractor's business model, which may or may not be to our advantage, and it appears to be not. I understand the point of having identification, but you have to have somebody actually verifying. And the guy that's at the booth, he's gonna have his hands full when it gets backed up on a Saturday, and cars are gonna fling by him over here, while another car's, paying for debris that's gonna go in the contractor bins. So unless we have somebody physically monitoring that, I don't know how a stick is gonna help, except for clutter the windshield. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just that. I don't know when it was changed or if it was changed, but didn't we used to have an ordinance in town that we weren't allowed to take out of town trash at that location? And my point being is that we have a lot of, and I know we've subleased the transfer station out, but that doesn't, the people that are renting it, the substation, are getting trash from other places besides the town of Wells. But that isn't what the ordinance said. It said that there'd be no outside trash accepted in the town of Wells. And we're doing that right now. And are we breaking our own ordinance by having those people there? Because as far as I'm concerned, the dump may have been less profitable before. But what's happened up there since our last highway foreman, I think he created a mess, and I'll tell him the same thing. He created a mess up there with having these outside people having the trash come into our town, leasing the building. We used to have all our trash used to be inside, staying dry, less tonnage. Now all our trash is outside, getting rained on, more tonnage. We're paying for a lot of water that we never used to pay for. So I really think you need to talk to Casella, and I don't know how bad you're locked into them with their contract, but we need to check our ordinances and see if they are in violation of that ordinance. I mean, I didn't like the deal back when it went through, and I don't like it anymore today.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on this matter? Yes, please.
Hi, Bev Essen. I have one question. What I saw on the town Facebook page was that you're going to have fewer sizes of the bags now. You're not going to have the smaller bags. And I'm a little concerned about that. I just bought some extras. Because for somebody older living alone, having to deal with a large bag, that could be kind of difficult. And also in the summertime, if somebody's in a small apartment and they have to wait to fill up that bag, it's gonna get pretty smelly. I'm wondering what the rationale was on not having the smaller bags that we have now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Essen.
So why don't we just
Oh.
hire one person?
Please state your name for the public if you could.
Shannon, why don't we just hire one person to stand on that other side? I know that is an expense, but doesn't seem like it would be that much more with what we're already doing. It would just be in a different area. If we're already gonna be upping the price, why not up it there and then you give someone a job too? Do we have cameras there at all? I mean, can't we look at license plates of the really big trucks that we're suspicious of? Do we not have legal recourse if they're doing that and they're not supposed to? That we could send them a bill? Just saying.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
I have one question on Facebook.
Okay.
If you'd like to take it.
Yes.
Someone wants a question from Diane Williams. She wants to know what will happen with recyclables. When the solid waste committee presented the info to the Board of Selectmen, they said there are no buyers for any of the recyclables. So will they go into the trash bags except for cardboard? Is that still the case?
My understanding is we're going to keep our recyclables, but ultimately those recyclables are getting transferred over into the trash, from my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, any other members of the board, but we're gonna keep the program in place just because it would be an undue burden to add the cardboard into the bags. And that was one of the costs, one of the justifications of the cost of the bags, albeit it's a little bit off the topic of the dump sticker, but if I recall, somebody had made the point that if we added the cardboard to the bags, even if the bags were cheaper, you're gonna have more volume, thus you're gonna spend more. So this is probably a sort of a way to offset that.
Mary Ann received two questions via email. First one was, how are stickers going to be associated to seasonal property owners who live out of town? And the second part of that, also for those who use seasonal property but live out of town. So that was question one. And then the second question, with the new dump stickers requiring town real estate tax identification, how are tenants to continue to use Town of Wells transfer station, the transfer station, when they don't own property in Wells?
My understanding with the second question was, there's multiple forms on there, correct?
I'm sorry?
There's multiple forms on there, as far as a registration or something of the sort, not just a tax bill.
Yeah, Jody's got it.
So I believe in the policy before you tonight, we're modeling that after the beach sticker policy. So the second question was on tenants. If we're talking year-round tenants, those people are registering their vehicles, they're paying an excise tax, so they're eligible for a sticker, just like with the beach sticker. If we're talking about an Airbnb tenant, they are not paying a tax to the Town of Wells by vehicle registration. So that tenant would not be able to use the transfer station. The homeowner themselves would be able to get the beach sticker because they're their property tax owner, whether they live here in Wells or if they live out of state. And it would be for their vehicle. And Mike, can you tell me the first question?
The first question, how are stickers going to be associated to seasonal property owners who live out of town? And the second part of that was also for those who use seasonal property but live out of town.
Okay, so same thing, if they're a seasonal owner, they're paying property tax here, they would be eligible for that transfer station tag.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anything online?
There is one question that just came in from Tracy Moulton, and I know this may be part of the conversation that we'll have in just a bit here. The question is, what about contractors working on Wells residences' homes and dumping the residents' refuse?
That was, I believe in the policy, that was also accounted for to an extent. I think we'll discuss that a little further when we actually get into the nuts and bolts. Well, seeing none,
I make a motion that we close the public hearing.
second, all those in favor? 5-0. Next, we'll move.
Can I just ask a
Yeah,
question?
absolutely.
I found it interesting, and please don't anyone take insult in this. But there was at least 4 questions asked by the audience that we didn't choose to answer, but we answered everything from the internet.
So some of them I think that we'll need clarification on and we can get into it.
I mean,
further.
they should know that,
Yeah.
we're trying to get clear. I just don't like that format. The
Yeah.
people that show up here really deserve an answer
Oh,
right
absolutely.
away and not the internet. You know, I'm just a point of order how we do this.
Yeah.
And please don't take it as a criticism, I'm just trying to figure this out myself.
Right, nope, absolutely, Tim, I agree. In regards to the lease and all that, obviously, that's not something that we can really answer right now without a further discussion, I think, from the legal counsel, so we won't have an immediate response to that. Some of the other things, I think operationally, we can consider that a little further once we go into discussion on this down in the current agenda items, and yeah, so the other one seemed like an easy answer, so that's why I did it that way, just because it was in the policy, so.
Is this available to everybody there, that they see this policy? Have you all got this policy?
It's not on
Because a lot of your questions that you asked, I think you'd find in this policy.
Some I think will warrant a little more discussion on our part, so. We'll move on to a public hearing to discuss change.
We're gonna have the public hearing closed, don't we have our discussion?
I thought that was in the current agenda items for that,
It's one of
but I could
the
be,
agenda items
Yeah,
that are
mistaken.
coming up.
do we wanna do that now? I have no problem with that.
I mean, yeah, I think you wanna
Since they're all
have the
here.
discussion, the people are here, they
Yeah,
should.
well, yeah,
We should have ours.
I have no issue with that, it was down in the current agenda items, that's the reason why I was going that route, if we wanna do it now, I have no issue with advancing that.
Let's move it up,
Let's move it
Yeah,
up.
we can do that, I like that format more, and we'll do that in the
Yep.
future.
Yeah,
Discussion, yes.
If I may offer, I think Ms. Butler had a comment regarding stickers on windshields. The state law requires a motor vehicle may display no more than one sticker on its windshield for parking or entry identification. Just as point of consideration, I do know a number of places that may have entry identification requirements. Put that on the rear driver's window as another option as opposed to the front windshield. You're still on the same side as likely the attendant and not obstructing the view in that location, so that may be something to think of.
You know, as far as the beach stickers, that was, somebody raised, I saw that point raised at one point, that also has a, call it a residency requirement, I guess, in terms of paying a tax bill or anything like that, where we're trying to identify, it's mostly for identification purposes, is there a way that we could have that suffice for the dump sticker?
That's a good question.
Since there are parallels in requirement for the information that was provided to the town. Or it's not a revenue stream.
The revenue for the beach sticker goes to the beach enterprise. And so the revenue for the transfer station sticker as proposed goes to offset taxation dollars.
Correct, and I understand that, my question is, and when we discuss it, and again, it could be a nothing burger, I just saw it and I thought it was interesting, was if our intent was for the sole purpose of identification for folks who lived in town, would that suffice also for the stated intent or not?
You meaning having one or the other?
Yeah.
I have a.
Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
There were some questions on the fact that it was $5. We did just, when we had the discussion, the whole workshop before, when we went, and we talked about the different prices that we needed to bring up the deficit from the transfer station. It was initially proposed that the sticker would be $25. Well, we knew that we were looking at the garbage bags, and we were gonna save taxpayers money by having one size, that's good. And then we knew we were gonna increase the cost of that. And the discussion there was, the reason why it went up as much is because we probably should have gone up quite a few years ago, but each time, nobody really wanted to address that. And so now we reached a point where fuel, cost of labor, everything has reached the point, and the deficit at the transfer station got so great that we had to have that adjusted. But we really honestly did not want to impact all the taxpayers with all these different costs at one time. So we went with the trash bags, because everyone's kind of used to that. We didn't change the cardboard and the recycling part, even though now we pay actually to have that taken away. It's not free. You know, it costs the taxpayers money to have that removed, but everyone's used to the recycling. And the other thing, if you put it in the garbage bags, if now we said we're not gonna do the recycling anymore, the cost of the bags went up $1.50, and now you're gonna try to get cardboard and everything else in those bags. So we really we tried to listen to all the objections that people had, and that's why we went. Now, for the stickers themselves, it costs $5. Jody, am I not right? It's about $5 for we went to just about the price.
By the time we add in staff costs, the program to issue the stickers and the sticker cost itself.
Yeah, so it's a wash. The reason why we did that, we got a lot of information about people bringing tires, that was one thing, because they couldn't, it was cheaper to bring them to Wells than to take them anywhere else or bring in the garbage. So we knew that was happening. Years ago, we used to have stickers, dump stickers before, well, it was called dump stickers then. But anyway, to be able to go to the transfer station. But, and so that kind of went by the way because we switched to the bags. So you're trying to always balance the costs. But honestly, the $5 that everyone's paying for to have those stickers there, and it's just the cost of doing it, will save the transfer costs a lot of money from people that were bringing it in for free, from other towns. That's the reason. So I think those were some of the concerns that we had when we looked at this. And we were doing it step by step, doing the bags, and then we're gonna look at the stickers. We are gonna look at the recycling, but I think we're going to, am I talking too much?
No.
Oh, am I? Well, everybody else tells me. Well, that's a shock.
Butch is on the phone.
Yeah, Butchie's on the phone, right. But I think that one of the other, next step which we have to look at is the recycling part of it. Yes, we have to look at that, and I think if we can have some creative ideas, and I know our new town manager here, Mike, has worked in other places where food is recycled, so you could look at the whole program for recycling and not just the cardboard, and maybe we could save some money doing it that way, because the heaviest cost about the garbage itself is food. So I think we're trying to address everything. We'll listen to you, appreciate all the information here that people are coming in. But in all honesty, it's my personal opinion, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but removing our rubbish is gonna be one of the biggest concerns going forward. It is gonna be the concern with what to do with our rubbish. So if we can take some steps now to kind of get that under control, I think it's better.
When you actually, Kathy, you brought up a great point too. Mike, and it's a little off topic because the public hearing was for the dump stickers, but I don't think it inappropriate just to rehash the bags and all that. But the point that Kathy made that I was interested in, where do we stand with, I believe Mr. Fox's, was it, that Carol was working with for our food composting program?
I don't know if Carol's here. Oh, she's hiding in the back.
Advantage being short.
I didn't see you back there, Carol.
I knew there was one somewhere.
Not short enough though.
We are talking to Mr. Fox as well as Garbage to Garden and a few other folks. I'm a huge believer in getting food scraps out of your waste stream. That's 30% of your waste, as Kathy mentioned. There are ways to turn that trash into a usable commodity, so we're exploring those. I owe some information back to Mike when we finish our discussions. I'm also drafting a grant proposal to submit to DEP to help fund that.
I'm sorry, Kathy, can I just circle back to something you said? That the town has a big deficit, and that's really hard for a lot of, that's really hard for a lot of people to kind of grasp, because we don't have town pickup, right? We have orange bags, and again, you know my theory on the orange bags, where the premise went awry and we didn't revisit, but okay. We have the orange bags, we're changing the orange bags, but how much of that deficit was driven by the contractor's business model, and now it's being foisted on Wells residents. And that's what Wells residents are starting to get frustrated with, because they see all those trucks coming in from everywhere. They see how crappy it has gotten in the past 10 years, how dumpy it has gotten in the last 10 years. And now, you know, as that other gentleman said, you know, we're paying for water. You know, it is like we keep paying more and more and more, and it doesn't seem to be any real interest to peel back the onion. When the contract is incomplete, you all can't even peel back the onion until somebody tracks down all the amendments and modifications to see where Wells can renegotiate things. Because we're in this terrible position of not being able to negotiate. The contract says good for 10 years and then, by extendable for 10 years. So we locked in for 20 years
Yes.
to this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
We
And
looked at that.
Yeah.
I said it and asked for it and we're locked in.
the solid waste committee reviewed it as well. I don't personally disagree with your point. I won't speak for my peers. I understand what
It
you're
has to
saying.
be some legal thing on whether, whether the violation of our ordinances, or we didn't understand they were gonna be, that all other towns were gonna dump their trash in our yard. I mean, it has to be something, and that hasn't been looked at, because there's just no way that we should, who in their right mind would lock in to something like that?
Yeah, it was some time ago.
Yeah,
So to answer your,
2014, I get it, I get it.
yeah, and I think that probably quite a few people who would agree on that front. In terms of the deficit, so the way the transfer station is run is as an enterprise fund, and what that means is basically that it's supposed to run at a neutral budget. Currently, the deficit just means that it's not taking in enough income to offset the expenses going out. The expenses of disposal are increasing.
Is it our disposal?
Well, yeah, so the building is separate from our cans.
It's fine, I'm finished.
Okay, well, thank you for your input.
Thanks.
So, yeah, that answered, well, that's a partial answer to that question.
Well, getting back to the stickers.
Yes.
There's two things that I think we should consider, a couple of things. I agree we should make the provision and have the stickers put on the back window.
Right, that makes
I think
sense.
that
Back
needs to be changed.
driver's side, I mean.
Side
driver's
window.
yeah.
Yeah, furthermost.
Just, it needs to be put in here someplace where it's gonna go. Also, supposedly it's supposed to go into effect on March 1st. And here we are, February 7th. We're just gonna sell the stickers starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's no way that we can, or anybody can be up to speed by, so we should at least amend it to not be effective or not fine anybody or
Have a
until
grace
at least
period.
April 1st. We certainly need to give people a considerable amount of time.
Would that be time enough, do you think?
Implement the policy March, but have a grace period extending out as.
Right, that nobody up at the transfer station tells somebody they can't put the trash there because they don't have the sticker. I think we need to give them that grace period.
Yeah, that might be a better, he's saying 30 days, because it's fine, they might get the sticker and there might be people watching it, and maybe some people won't be aware, but I think if we can give them one more month to get it out, get the stickers on the cars, and then get people used to it, and then I think maybe a month.
Well,
is
somebody
the way.
could go up there and not even know about the
Yeah,
stickers.
right,
and
exactly,
then
that'll definitely
the folks up
happen.
at the transfer
Yeah.
station say, hey, you need to get and maybe we could have a flyer and hand it to them and say, go get your sticker at the town hall. We need to do something for more education of the.
If that were to happen, do they sell the stickers at the fair too?
Because they can't prove.
Because they can't prove the residency, right, that's true, yeah,
A lot of burden
alright,
for
yeah,
Jack too, but that's a good idea.
yeah.
What would you think April
You
first would
think
be
April would
appropriate?
be enough?
I certainly think, and it may be something we may wanna revisit, because I think we'll talk with Jody and the staff up there, and if it's still a problem for people to get in and buy the stickers, we may have to extend it for another period of time.
When we go April 15th, because that's a really great day for everyone.
Yeah, that's,
That's
that gives
90 days, you know, I mean, I'm
Yeah, it's
I was
90
joking,
days,
but
right.
45 days, you know,
Yeah.
I was joking about that.
I just,
day, but
yeah, I think,
just giving a little more time even, right?
I think whatever period of time,
I think
45 days would be
Right,
fine.
45 with days, and that would give us.
Yeah, they'll give us time for it to actually be, there'll be notice, and maybe then we can talk about if it went to effect that day, maybe they would get a 30-day grace period, just with no fines. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Or
think-
no, not fines, it'd be,
Without being turned away.
without being turned away.
Right. And the other issue that I wanted to bring up is on the temporary pass for demolition disposal by a non-taxpaying, non-resident commercial contractor. And here we say, all temporary passes is issued to the commercial contractor for disposal of debris. I think we should make it the responsibility of the property owner.
Right.
Cause any commercial contractor could come in and say, hey, I'm working on so-and-so's house, and go over to Kennebunk or Wells or Ogunquit or someplace and bring that debris here. So I think we should put the property owner Cause the property owner can come in, they get their building permit, and they can get their disposal permit at the same time. So I just think it should be property owner.
I agree.
Yeah.
Can I comment on that though? So speaking with Jodine, not everything needs a building permit. So that's why we're looking for guidance on that.
I still think the property owner should have
Well,
to
the
do
property
it.
owner would have to come in if they were having any service
I mean,
done.
whether they need a building permit or not, they're still gonna be bringing the debris.
But they have to have a demo permit.
Right, no. So if you're replacing a roof, you don't need a demo
Oh,
permit.
okay.
So there was things I asked Jodine about. If they're getting new windows, they need a demo permit. If they're replacing flooring, they don't need a demo permit. So I can't link it to a demo permit.
No, I mean, I don't think we have to link it to it, I just think
And then you want it issued to the resident?
Yeah.
and all the contractor can just bring this, the permit that you give.
So, okay. But it was left upon us, so we're actually looking for guidance on this.
Yep, no, I just,
Property owner.
property
Yeah,
owner.
that makes more sense. And then the property owner would know.
Hey, just 1 second,
So
Chris,
this
yeah.
isn't to be associated with a license plate, this is just a standalone permit that they can hand out.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
developing a paper that we'll be
Right.
able to hand to them. We're also asking for guidance on how long you want that permit to be valid.
Why don't they just fill that out if they have an ongoing job? I mean, if it was
Yeah, they
clear.
I would think the property owner could say, I
Okay.
mean, it's a 2-week job, it's a,
Okay.
Up to maybe, an up to date, just so it didn't, somebody didn't come in theoretically and say all year, but. Chris, did you have something that you wanted to
Yeah,
contribute?
just about the contractor part. Don't allow contractors in there. If I have a job, I get going, I have a permit, I have a container, it's my responsibility to get rid of that trash. I can go to Simpson's and get rid of it. And I just don't think you should even entertain, if the homeowner decides he wants to pick that trash up and take it himself, he can, cause he's gonna have his permit. But a contractor, it's part of your bid to get rid of that trash, and where you gotta get rid of it somewhere. So I wouldn't even entertain letting them come with building demo into our dump. Wouldn't even give it a second thought. Just tell them to find a place, and the town of Wells isn't the place.
I agree, cause then they can just put other stuff in.
Yeah, and Simpsons is easy. I take the dump truck up there.
And if, I don't mind taking public comment during this period because it occurs to me that maybe a question arises. I wanna make sure we do it in an orderly fashion. If you have a question or a comment, please just raise your hand and I'll call on you when we get a break. I certainly want public input. We're not trying to stifle anyone, so just to bear that in mind.
I mean, I just think that, and I agree, you know, sometimes it's cheaper to take it elsewhere, and to do it. But if in fact a homeowner is having the job done and he or she is responsible for getting the contractor to get rid of their debris, at least we should have a provision in here for that to happen. It's a $50 fee.
Right.
I think it may not happen. I mean, I just had a major job done where we had a lot of debris and it all went to Simpson, so. But that, you know, I think a lot of big jobs that does, but sometimes it's a small job. Sometimes you replace a deck or something and you just gotta haul the wood away, but.
Quick question on that, and just for the board to consider, would we create sort of a double jeopardy situation where we're talking later in the agenda about potentially banning brush from a commercial hauler, but where would we run into if the resident had gone down and got the sticker? Would we still say that's prohibited, or where it was a resident that was sending a contractor down, would that set us up for an argument from a consistency standpoint?
Well, this is for a demo only,
This
this
is
isn't
demo.
brush.
Yeah, okay. Alright, well, then
Right.
probably not.
I think you're right, Bob. I think it should be in there even if it never gets used for that one exception.
It may not, but
It's actually cheaper to go to Simpsons.
I mean, I think, you know, part of the, and we've had this discussion, I mean, part of the problem that we have with the transfer station, as John mentioned, it's right now, it's a $200,000 shortfall. But in the next contract year, our tipping fees are going up. They're going from $68 to $92. The cost of our transportation is gonna go up because of the cost of fuel. So that $200,000 is now gonna become far more. And so we needed to do something. It's not fair for people who use the transfer station to be subsidized by the property owners' taxes who have a private hauler come. And that's how it's working now. If you pay somebody to come pick up the trash at your house, you're also, through your property taxes, paying for the transfer station. So we try to make some equity here. And it's not always gonna be equitable, but you gotta try to make it as fair as you can. And that was the goal that the recycling committee is the one that came with most of these recommendations. They had a few more too, but these are the ones we adopted, so that was.
Absolutely. And just any more thoughts on the beach sticker, just because again, I think it was never about making money on the beach stickers when we talked about it. It was just to ensure that it was residents.
We wanna make money on the beach stickers.
Yeah, on the beach
On the
stickers
beach
we
stickers,
did.
yes, but not on the trash stickers.
You said you don't make.
No, not
Definitely
making
wanna
money
make
on the
money.
dump stickers, I should have clarified that, no, the stickers in general. But it, again, if somebody has already proved residency with a more expensive sticker, would that suffice for our purpose? Dump sticker or beach sticker, resident beach pass?
No,
No,
no, it's two different things. Two very different things, no. I don't agree with that. I think you have the dump sticker because you're using the transfer station, and you have the beach sticker because you're using the beach and you wanna get a discount on the parking meters. Two very different things.
Right.
And maybe, I don't get a beach sticker, but I would definitely get a dump sticker.
right, but you'd pay less for the dump sticker.
Yeah.
I understand it's two different things, but again, it's proving residency, so where it's not two different things, it's the
Wait.
same thing.
Are you saying you
The
can prove
beach
your
sticker.
residency if you show your beach sticker?
Yeah.
Oh, that's different. I thought you wanted to put it on the
Just
same one.
no, just saving people money.
Oh.
In other words,
No.
if you buy a beach sticker, what he's saying is if you buy a beach sticker, it counts as your dump.
No, I don't agree with that. I don't think, it's two very different things. And we're doing it for different reasons.
But the goal of the dump sticker is to prove residency.
Right.
Which the beach
The
sticker
beach
does.
sticker already proves your residency. You can't get one unless you meet these qualifications.
We're making them pay for the same thing essentially. I understand it's two different services, but they've already proved it with one sticker, and we said we're not trying to make money on the dump stickers. So it just seems to me like it's, I don't know, charging unnecessarily if they've already proved it.
I agree with that.
Okay,
I mean,
all right, I'll agree with you.
Can I just get the question?
I just have a suggestion. I don't use the beach, I just don't go, because I'm by Firewood. But you could have different color stickers, one that's for residents for beach and dump, that's like green or whatever. And then the just dump be orange, I don't know, just saying you could do something
So
like
if
that.
I buy my dump sticker, can I go to the beach at
No.
a discount?
No.
Stickers,
Only if you bring your
stickers
trash.
need to be used starting in May and
Well, I
they
just wondered.
expire after October.
So it might not work, the logistics of it.
Right,
No,
No.
they're
we're gonna have the
seasonal.
beach stickers, it's
All right.
two
That's all
different
right.
things, two different processes, two different tracking.
I do wanna, I have had, I don't know if anybody else has, numerous people come to me about some of us not being able to lift the bags, and that is a huge concern. We've gone to 33-gallon bags, those are big bags, we don't, personally, I go to the dump transfer station with my bags, but it's a smaller bag, I'm fine with the 33, I can lift it. But I do have concerns with people that, I didn't think of that, to be honest with you, in any way while we're dealing with this, but it is a concern of, there's a lot of old people up there, and I asked my wife and she said, yeah, they're gonna struggle. My wife's actually the one that goes to dump, I'm always embarrassed by that, but she's the one that does it for us, but I don't know, I've had at least 6 or 7 phone calls saying, well, how am I gonna lift this bag into up over that
What
limit?
size bags do we currently have?
So we currently have a 15-gallon, a 33 and a 45.
So we've done away with the 45 and the 15.
Right, all our vendors have been made aware of that change.
I know, I
So-
understand that, I didn't.
So, but there is still inventory and we have the option that we could change. I don't know, piggybacking on Tim's thought, if I can't do the math quickly in my head, but figure out what the per gallon cost is and then relate that also to a new price for the 15-gallon bag.
Yeah, that's
What,
fine.
What are we at, $4.50?
No,
oh,
we're
it's
at
for the
$4.
33, $4 for the 33 gallon.
You know, we're currently at the the small one, we buy them, so I can't remember, but.
We're looking at about $8.25 a gallon.
Casey's at 13.
So why don't we figure that, we'll just, so if we had 33, if we had this 15-gallon ones, it'll just be the same
Whatever the
cost,
per
whatever
gallon
the per gallon
charge
is, that
yes.
whatever it turns out, rounding it up, I mean, like, so it's reasonable if it's
Yes.
$1.27 or something, you know,
Yes, yeah.
but.
So the raw math takes us for a 15-gallon to $1.81, and for a 45 to $5.45.
I wouldn't do the four, I just do
No,
two.
whatever it
do the
is for
two
40
sides.
gallons.
Just a-
We're only gonna
15
do
and the
40,
33.
yeah, we'll do
So
33 and the,
$2, I would say, right, if that's what it really.
yeah, $2,
Whatever,
$2,
you add that
right,
to our current
Right,
price, yeah.
You can get the inventory, the supplier, you think?
Yeah, when we had conversations last week, I think we had 65 cases.
Okay.
So, and that what we would do is take our stop off of, we're not gonna manufacture those bags anymore and we wanna continue, so it'll just be us sending new notices to the vendors with the prices for both those size bags.
There was actually people running to the, seriously, I mean, I had
I
two
saw that
elderly
too.
people going to the store to buy up as many as they could, and I don't know that was our goal in this thing.
no,
No,
Right, and here, we've been getting people coming in for those size bags.
Well, like
So-
you said, Tim, when we had the public hearing, I didn't contemplate it, I
I
know
didn't think
that.
about that, because we thought it would just be more convenient to have one, it'd be more, so it's the same price, well, actually, you do better if you buy the bigger one, but.
so we're gonna have to amend the policy.
Yeah, we'll probably have to have another public hearing on that. All right, well, let's, I guess, schedule that for the next one. Go back to dump stickers.
I can't even.
Then we're gonna push the effective date off.
Yeah, I'll have a grace period for the effective, make the effective date March, whatever, but have a grace period where
Till April 15th, maybe.
Yeah.
It's a Saturday, it works out.
seems reasonable to me, if that sounds good to everybody else.
Yeah.
So
And
we
also
can come
the,
back with that,
on
so
the
we can.
contract,
Contractors, have the resident come in,
Property owner.
get property owner, resident, yep, exactly.
Where would you get these beach stickers?
It didn't sound like it was gonna work.
No.
But like I
they're only
said,
seasonal, They're
Oh,
effective for May to October.
So if we're gonna move it to can we come, are we gonna come back with that, so we,
Come back for a public hearing with a revised.
with the revised,
proposed
okay,
order.
good, because to be
And
adding
also
all
the-
that to
the
a
sticker's
motion
gotta
is
go on
like
the
not
side
a good
window.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll just move that to the 21st. And two size bags, property owner on the commercial
Yep.
front piece.
In the side window.
And the
with
side window.
sticker.
And the
Did
side.
we say
and the
the two
delayed timing, right, all that,
I actually could run down and get one, but they are the same size as a beach sticker.
Okay.
They are just a different color.
okay, good.
Did we say two size or was it three?
No, just two,
Just two, okay.
Can we have the option of putting it in the other location,
Well,
or do you want
that's
it
what I was
on
gonna
the
ask.
side of the car? Cause
Well, I think if you had the beach stickers probably on the windshield, isn't it?
The beach sticker currently goes on the lower left-hand corner of the driver's side. That's what our stickers say, but we can verbally tell people to place them. I believe they should be on the driver's side, so they're easily identified, but
Oftentimes you'll see the most rear window on the driver's side as a location, so that when they pull up to an attendant or something, they're always, it's consistent, but it doesn't interfere with anybody's view or anything, easily identified.
Mike, I know you're an ex-cop, so could you explain to me the rear, when you say, and maybe I'm just dumb.
Well, where you
driver's
drive, the
Driver's
window
side all the way
behind
back
you.
the passenger seat?
Yeah,
Alright,
the rear
Passenger.
passenger.
Right, I got
The
it,
rear
yeah, I
passenger.
just wanna make sure, cause I think people would think.
Not the rear window.
Right,
No.
yeah, alright,
So then you don't obstruct any view.
I heard somebody say you gotta put on the rear window in the.
I get that, there's people that put window tinting on and you put a sticker on top of that stuff and you start tearing it off and you got a mess on your hands. I don't know that there's a perfect answer, but
right, that's, yeah, maybe,
Can it go on a
maybe you don't
bumper?
put it down.
I think that may be tough.
Display it somewhere
Yeah.
conspicuous.
at this point, they're designed to go on a windshield
window,
of-
yeah.
on
But I
a
think if you're
window.
consistent, the attendant always
Right.
knows where to look.
Right, that's why they just glance and look.
And the idea, I think people need to understand too, is the idea is to give us a way to identify, it's not like we need someone standing there to, we're not like, I mean, we wanna, I'd be able to identify quickly.
Sure.
By people walking, the guys that are walking around and stuff, but at the same time, we're not,
It's a quick look.
I don't think we're at the point, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, that we're gonna have like people like
Toking
one
one,
person just that's responsible to walk around and check.
No.
I didn't think that was our intent
No.
at the time.
Remember that meeting you didn't show up for?
There we go. Just on Saturdays, right?
We'll have you as a volunteer position.
Unless you start passing the ball.
Yeah, well,
Okay, so-
that's not gonna happen.
So tonight, we're just gonna move to have a public hearing, to continue the public hearing
On the 21st.
on the 21st, okay?
And do we wanna make that dual stickers and bags, where it's two different rather than just stickers, where we had the other subject?
Well, just be an amendment to the transfer station policy.
Okay. Alright.
And we can do them all.
That'll cover it, alright.
I think that makes it easy. I don't think you'll have any objection to the added size.
No.
And hopefully seniors.
To the transfer costs.
I know it's not in this piece, but I think, Jody, maybe you can help me with this, what you have in the past, but I think an answer to some of the public's question is the deficit we have, how is that really affected by that? What's going on at the other part of the building? I must have misunderstood that, I thought that didn't affect our,
It doesn't.
Right,
right, alright,
those costs are.
there's the answer,
strictly-
you don't have to investigate it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, they're just processing.
Right, I didn't think those
Doesn't
trucks
cost
coming
us
in
anything.
doesn't cost us anything, the deficit is from our personal
Our
trash.
personal trash.
Only
That's what I wanna make sure we understand,
From
it's
the
not
per-
from.
from the perspective of, which is possibly anecdotal, from the perspective of maybe the lease is undervalued, then yes, it would be a detriment, but again, without putting that out to bid and everything else, which I don't believe we have any recourse to be able to do something like that. There's no way of telling that, I mean.
But that doesn't affect the $200,000 we're in the hole, that's my other point, this is addressing the $200,000. Whether you believe that we should be addressing the other part of it, I mean, we're at a 20-year lease, whether we made a mistake back in those days, we made a mistake, if that's what you think.
Part of how that is affecting you is on weight, everything up there is done on weight. And they have all of their stuff undercover, why? Cause it's dry. And if you're in the trash business, it's by the ton, and what we're doing is we're paying to get rid of water. There is that trash when it gets wet, gains a lot of weight, and it sits out there. And you may not think that it does, but have a dumpster at home sometime, dry, and take it and weigh it, and have a dumpster at home sometime so that it has wet material, same material, only wet. All that water, that's where you're getting your expense from them being there, is we're paying to get rid of water.
But most of the containers out there are covered, I mean, we have roofs over them.
When was the last time you saw a rain come down this way? It comes down this way, I mean, the roof does very little.
It's like buying stone dust from Pike on a rainy day.
Can't do it.
You get half the material.
Before you close, I have one question. Is the board comfortable? We've had multiple people coming in to purchase these. Are you okay with us using these guidelines and start to sell them, or would you wish us to wait?
Start selling.
I'd sell them.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be in
We
tomorrow.
were waiting today to kind of just make sure
Yeah.
of guidance, so.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Joey, just another quick question, cause this was also asked, they can mail in just like,
Just
right?
like a beach sticker.
Just like a beach sticker, cause that was asked, cause I know there was some people that said, we just come up for the weekend, we're never,
Yes.
but we pay property tax, they just wanna make sure.
We actually
I have that answer, I saw it, but I wanna make sure. I would say next time, and I don't know if you remember this, and I steal this as my idea, but this is what sometimes kids do in school. And I believe it was you, Rebecca, that put out, when we were dealing with the awful thing at the harbor with the sewer pipe, we put out a very good graphic that explained why and how and what the thing is. I think each time we put something out that, something similar to that graphic is a great way to just explain it, cause I think when we just put it out on a Facebook page, it opens itself, there was so many questions.
Yeah.
If we had a graphic for now on that, cause that graphic, you remember that? Everybody was like, oh, now I understand, you know what I mean, and you did a great job. Yeah, something, it doesn't have to be the exact one, you work your magic, but something similar that explains why we do it and what we're doing, might help the people.
Absolutely. I mean, this process, this has been going on now for over a year anyway, and we've had several meetings, so there's a lot of information to compress, but I agree with Tim. I think that we should make that a standard practice to try to condense the information get it out there. People seem to really enjoy social media, and that gives a, you know, a unified voice for the town government right there, so. Well, any other discussion? Do we have a motion?
I move to continue the public hearing to the transfer cost policies for February 21st, 23rd at 6 PM in the Littlefield Meeting Room, 208 Sanford Road.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0, thank you. So, to Bob's point, the way the agenda's laid out right now, our discussion takes place later in the agenda, but what I'm gonna go ahead and do is we'll have our discussion immediately proceeding each one of these items, and we will answer your questions at that time, and I will solicit a back and forth as, you know, should need be. If somebody raises their hand during our comment period, we will give you your time to speak. To Tim's point, we'll just keep quiet during public comment period. We'll make note of the questions and we'll try to answer those as they come up. Again, that won't be the end of the conversation. If another one arises, just put your hand up. We're moving on to the public hearing to discuss changing the current town clerk position from elected to appointed. So at this time, I'd like to open up the.
You wanna tee it?
Go ahead, Bob.
I was just thinking you might wanna tee up why we're bringing this up at this
Sure,
point.
No.
we could.
Isn't it from appointed to elected? Oh, no,
From
that's
elected
right,
to
yep,
appointed,
got it,
yeah.
right, okay.
So, yeah, to tee this up, Mike, I'll let you
Sure, I'll be
give us a
happy to.
briefing on that if you could.
A number of weeks ago, Brenda came to visit and shared with me that she intends to retire her position right after the June vote at town meeting. She actually indicated March and we were able to negotiate till June, and I thank her for that. And then we talked about the position and the duties and responsibilities, all recognizing how the complexities of her job and of all town clerk positions. And Brenda and her sister came in and visited with the board in a workshop session or special meeting session. And their recommendation, Brenda, I don't wanna put words in your mouth, please, but was that the board consider moving to an appointed position. And again, it goes back to the fact of how complex the position is now. Gubernatorial races are very complex, the presidential will be even more so. The number of absentee ballots are growing tremendously. The thought process is that those may not require as many touches by a town clerk, but I think Brenda would attest that they require perhaps 2 or 3 times the number of touches. That's the tee up. It all generated from a conversation from our very experienced town clerk and Jessica who preceded her.
Well put, Mike, thank you very much. That said, do we have any public comment on this? Please come up and state your name at the podium.
This is why I really came, Chris Chase. I understand the troubles of finding a qualified person for the position. But I also understand giving away one more of the rights that I have to vote on something. And I feel like I'm just giving away another right to support this, so. In order for you to do this, you're gonna have to go to a town vote to let it happen. Or you're gonna be able to do it on your own, you're just gonna do it.
I can answer that one. I'll earn my keep for the day.
Can we,
Yeah.
just to keep it a little cleaner, Chris, do you mind if we'll take note of that and answer it during our, just to keep things rolling, just so it's.
But I talked to Jessica for a while on the phone the other night. And she's snowmobiling, having fun, but and I know it's been a lot, it's come up many times over the years, and I understand, but I wish there was a way that you could present 2 people for the position, or if somebody does present themselves for the, nobody wants to do anything, nobody wants to run for the board of selectmen, nobody wants to be on the planning board, nobody wants to volunteer, nobody wants to, but this is a job that they're actually gonna get paid for, so maybe there's some more people, and I know you have to be qualified to do the job. But I wish there was a way, and Jessica said that the state laws may prohibit you from going out of town or for going different places to get an elected person to come in to do it. But I wish we could write something that allows somebody from another town to come into our town, but still give us the right to vote for who we have in there. Cause when you appoint, and it's not gonna be the 5 board of selectmen that appoint, it's gonna be the town manager. I mean, that's who it's gonna be. You guys can give your recommendations all you want, but if he says, no, I don't want to, the only one you guys can fire is him. It's totally his job to pick that person and to appoint him. Yes, as a general rule, they use your recommendation because they know that, you know, he's the only one you can fire. But, so you're gonna give up part of that right yourself. And, you know, my ex-father-in-law used to say he spent 4 years of his life fighting for the rights of this country and the rest of them voting him away one at a time. And I feel like it's one more thing we're gonna vote away, or not vote away, but give away a right to have who we want in that position. And I think one person making that decision against the whole town making that decision, I'd put my weight on the whole town. And I know that the trouble of finding a qualified person. And I wish you'd look further into ways around finding a more qualified person that can still be voted on. Whether, if you write up something that says, this is how we're gonna do it in the town of Wells, and I know the state law says you can't do it this way, but we run our town. And the only person that's gonna ever fight it is gonna be somebody that's running for that position. That says that, you know, they want it or whatever, you know, nobody's gonna fight the town of Wells because we set up a rule on how we wanna have one of our people elected. We can go, I mean, there's probably somebody, there could be somebody from Kennybunk, Sanford, it could be somebody from anywhere. I really wish you'd think of hard and try to avoid making it appointed and see what you can do on bending the rules or whatever you have to get it, to keep it elected. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, please state your name at the podium.
Nancy Ford, Wells resident. I am totally and completely in favor of appointing the town clerk. However that appointment takes place, I might agree with you, Chris, that maybe it shouldn't be just one person doing the appointing, just like the select board appoints our town manager, but basically it's not appointing, it's hiring a position. A managerial position is what we're talking about here. This is not an elected official, it is a managerial position. And in those circumstances, as far as I'm concerned, we need to be sure of qualifications, experience, have resumes, the whole 9 yards. And you do not get that in an election, which we did, but we don't. And you see what we get sometimes because of that. But in this case, this is strictly a managerial position. And that is what it's supposed to be. It is supposed to be non-biased, non-political, and somebody who is not looking for the next election and what party it might support them. This is somebody who has to bring their qualifications and present them, whether it's to the Board of Selectmen or anybody else, and be vetted. The only thing I can think of, it's like a chief operating officer of a business. If you own that business, would you want to have to go out and get somebody elected to that position, or would you want to have the opportunity to hire the person you need to fill that position? This is a chief operating position. And so that's why, and I know in many towns, they have tried it. It was appointed, they went to elected, and they had to put it back to appointed because the person who was elected could not do the job. So they tried it, I believe in Kennybunk at one point, to do that. And they were very sorry they did it. They had the perfect solution. The other thing, as you say, Chris, I think we should have the opportunity to go outside of our own town to look to the best qualified people, just like we go outside of our own town to look for a town manager. I do not see the difference in these positions as being a managerial position. I had another couple of notes here. And that position is overseen by our elected officials. So it's not like we're losing control. We still have the right to complain. We still have a right to go to our town officials, and they should have the right to fire them, which you cannot do with an elected official. You cannot fire them if they are not doing their job. And I think that is also important when you're talking about a managerial position. If they don't cut the mustard, they should be able to be fired. An elected position, I don't think we have repeal here or being able to throw any elected official out. So they are indeed
are elected representatives, just like we send representatives up to the state, and we trust their judgment as to what they're going to do and how they're gonna make laws. It goes right up the line. And I think in this case, we should look at this as a managerial position. It should not be an elected position. It should not be subject to the whims of politics. It should be subject to qualifications and experience and be able to hire the best person we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Go ahead, Mr. Chase.
She brought up a good point about being in the same position as a town manager. Is there any way that the Board of Selectmen could have the authority over the town clerk, just like they have the authority over the town manager? It would be appointed by them, and they would answer to them, just like he does, and they'd be like an equal, and it would keep it separate at the same time. I don't know if there's a way to do that or not.
Keep biting your tongue.
I'm biting. I'm writing notes.
Anyone else? Yes, Mrs. Essen. If you could, even though I just said it, if you could state your name again at the podium for the folks at home, that'd be great.
Thank you, Bev Essen. I've been an election volunteer starting in 2008. Over the last few elections, I've actually been volunteering in the office because a lot of people think that elections happen on the day of, and it is weeks and weeks of preparation, many long hours. I don't think most Wells residents realize how hard the town clerk and staff work. And my side plea is, please refill that fourth position. The town has grown. We have a lot more residents, especially during an election season. It is non-stop in there. The phone rings constantly. Having volunteers in, there are certain things we can do and take some of the load off, but there's a lot that we cannot do and should not be doing. We really need that fourth position back. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just. I'm still Nancy Ford. I know this has nothing to do with the hiring and so forth, but I have been saying for a long time to many of you, they need more help. And anybody who thinks doing absentee ballots is making it simpler, it is not. It is tripling the work, if not quadrupling the work. And anybody who comes in to do an absentee ballot inspection before the election will understand that that is the case, and they are working tremendous number of hours. And then they're being told, honestly, by some people, well, we don't vote because we don't think it's run fair. And then they get demoralized. And I think that is one of the things that has to stop. But that's another issue for another day. But right now, I'm just echoing, they need more help. And it has to be in the budget.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anything on the internet?
Nothing on the internet on this topic.
Mike, did we have anything come in via email or anything?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. Last chance. Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0, all right, discussion. So, where do we wanna start? Why don't we go through some of the questions first, I guess, here, and comments if we could. Scott, I saw you were taking notes, so why don't we go ahead in there and.
Wanna let Leah answer the ones that are legal or?
Yeah, we can do that.
Sure. Okay, I had two, and if I misunderstood the question, Chris, I'm sure you'll let me know. The question was, does town meeting have to vote on this change? And because it is specifically stated in the charter that the town clerk's position is an elected position, then it would have to go to the town meeting and, shall the town vote to amend the charter thus and so. So yes. Second question was, can the board of selectmen have control over the town clerk as opposed to the town manager? And both under the Wells Charter and state statute, Wells is a town manager plan form of government, and what that means is that the town manager, as you stated, has authority and control over town officials elected and not elected, but appointed. And that, so the answer is that it does go through the town manager from a legal standpoint. I think there's also a provision in the charter that says that the Board of Selectmen certainly can make opinion known, but they can't be, I don't think the word is interfere, but something along those lines, that it's the town manager's job. And if, of course, they are not happy with the town manager, then we know what that means, but that's that's right. That's right. So under town manager form of government, you're quite correct that it is the town manager who makes the decisions to hire and fire officials.
Could I just follow up on, you hesitated when you said that the town manager has authority over appointed, elected, and then you threw back the elected.
It's not elected.
That's right.
Right.
And that would mean that the town clerk, who is the town clerk responsible to as an elected position?
The voters.
The voters. So in
Correct.
other words, under those circumstances, neither the manager or the Board of Selectmen have any control or any discussion or any possibility. And that's what I said as far as being able to fire somebody who isn't doing it. The selectmen can fire the town manager, can they not?
They certainly can, depending on the contract and circumstances.
I'm just saying, so if the town manager
Just keep in mind,
was
yeah.
irresponsible in the way they were supervising the town clerk, still the select board has the authority to adjust the town manager.
And you're right, the voters are the only people who can fire an elected official.
Right.
I mean, just to, my sense is the way this would work if we end up going with a hired, is the same way we hire any department head. The police chief, fire chief, it's done by a committee, the Board of Selectmen are involved in interviewing the people, the committee comes up with the recommendation and makes that recommendation to the town manager. It'd be the same as any other department head, because that's what this, the town clerk is a department head and would be on the same level as all other department heads, but would be hired under the same circumstances. And that would involve the board and probably maybe some citizens, maybe some prior people who were in that position, and would have a good balance of people who would do the interviewing and the recommendations.
I've been saying for 6 years, I've been on the board, that I felt that this was the way to go, and Chris, I hear what you're saying. And I think we've been very lucky in this town to have great town clerks. To me, we've been lucky in this town to have great town clerks. I've always thought if some, no offense to anyone, Tom, Dick, or Harry came in and decided, hey, that sounds really cool, it's 60-something thousand, whatever the number is, I'll go do that job, and they get elected by the people of this town because they think this guy looks pretty cool, and then all of a sudden he's not who he is, and now we're at election time and we run a terrible election and everybody goes nuts, and this guy is, and then he walks away. It's just been a great fear of mine that could happen, because there is no qualifications, for being elected. It's just.
You have to be 18 years old.
or,
18 years old.
right?
I can see that.
Yes, right. Believe me, I've been saying that for years since I've
I thought
been
somebody
elected.
shared a
There's no
story
qualifications.
like that with us, didn't they? Did
I'm
they?
sorry?
I thought somebody shared a story like that with us, did
There
they
was
not?
a treasurer elected up in northern Maine who had no qualifications. He was the only one that ran. He got elected as the town treasurer, never showed up, didn't know how to balance a book, and he was elected. And they suffered the consequences dearly.
John, may I ask?
Yeah, absolutely, of course.
I was wondering if Leah might be able to also articulate about the state statutes that oversee elections to make sure there's a separation of the manager or anyone else in the election process. Sometimes there's concern that there could be interference.
Sure, well, I mean, I no disrespect, Mike, but there's absolutely no role for the
Correct.
town manager in
No,
elections,
that's perfect,
right?
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, under 21A, under 30A, those processes talk about, obviously they talk about town clerks, deputy clerks, election wardens, ballot clerks, tellers, depending if it's an open town meeting or not. And so you've got enough to do, you don't need to be worrying about these elections.
Yeah, and I just wanted that to be clear that there is no convergence of duties and responsibilities in that. That is a totally separate piece, and sometimes the public's not aware of that.
Right.
The one thing we have to talk about is process. I mean, if this has to go to a town meeting vote to change the position from elected to appointed, we don't wanna wait until June to do that. Because our dear town clerk is gonna be leaving the day after that election. And we don't wanna start hiring somebody, or start the process of hiring somebody, because we really want that person in place to learn from the outgoing clerk. So how, I mean, we gotta talk about the logistics of how do we have a town meeting, before that.
You can, well, I think you're gonna have some issues around that in the sense of now, because this is a secret ballot town, it's a referenda town, it's not an open town meeting town, and the clerk can talk about this, but absentee ballots have to be, not ballots, but I should say absentee votes have to be able to be cast on this question. So there is, my thought is this, we're getting close. I don't know what the drop dead date is. Somebody can help me here about when things have to be certified for a town meeting.
It'll be April.
Yeah, so 45
End of April.
to 60.
April 14th.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, so we're getting close, but I think, Bob, your point is very well taken, and then there's also the issue of, okay, so let's think this through. If for whatever reason the question, shall the charter be amended, doesn't go through, nobody puts their hat in the ring to be the town clerk, then what, right? But there is an answer to that question. Luckily, statute fills in the gaps to say that if there's a vacancy in a town official position, meaning an elected official, so long as it's not the Board of Selectmen or a school committee position, that this board can make an appointment in that regard. So say nobody does put their hat in the ring to become the town clerk, town meeting votes, no, we still want it to be elected, you can make an appointment in that regard until you can call an election and get a candidate. So that at least is a stopgap. But when it comes to the hiring process, that is an issue. If, I don't know if you're, and this is something I don't know, if you're advertising from within or advertising from without, but probably both. And that, that process is gonna probably work its way through, and you would just need to be candid about the fact that this is going forward. That this vote is
So
being amended.
Papers will have to be available for the clerk's position.
I didn't hear that, I'm sorry.
Papers would have to be available for the clerk position, cause you're up for reelection. That's
This
an
year?
interesting,
And I can say this, that papers do have to be available, right? Because under the charter, it's an elected position and the term of the current clerk is going to be expiring. So those papers have to be available. That doesn't mean that somebody's going to actually put in for it. So if they do, and you think, oh shoot, well, are we gonna have competing ballot articles here? I think there's a way around that. What you can do is Article 1, not 1, that's the moderator. Article 2 is, shall the proposed amendments to the charter be enacted, right? And the next one is, if and only if Article 1 shall not pass, then shall so-and-so be elected, right? So there's a way logistically around that. You can do it that way.
So if the people don't vote for it to be appointed.
Meaning it goes down. The
right,
question.
So then what happens?
So then there's a provision under state law that talks about when a vacancy exists. Well, there'll be a vacancy if there's a whole laundry list of when a vacancy is, God forbid somebody dies, this, that, and the other thing. One of them is failure of the municipality to elect a person or officer, right? Then that goes back to the Board of Selectmen, then under statute has the authority to appoint an elected official because none has been elected to office. To be clear, if a Board of Selectmen member, if that office becomes vacant or a school board position becomes vacant, the Board of Selectmen cannot appoint that. But if the elected office is town clerk, I think it does fall within the possibility of having the Board of Selectmen appoint somebody until an election can be held for that office.
Until an election.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna ask a question. I don't want it to be like taken the wrong way, but you're gonna be, the next time there's an election is due this year, right, in June? Is that okay to replace the town clerk if they ran? If you were to retire, or now, would we appoint somebody to take your place in that vacancy?
Now, if I did my plan of leaving it.
Yeah. And I'm saying, well, the only reason I'm saying that is there would be time for them, there wouldn't be that confusion. And I, you know, and Brenda, it's not like I want, you know, but I'm just saying, and we can move forward to put that on the ballot, and we would at least have an appointed person in that position at the time until.
The continuity of process.
That's right, just because we're talking about the laundry
Yeah.
list of when a vacancy occurs. One of them is non-acceptance, so you get voted in, but I'm not taking the job. Resignation in a current position, and so that does authorize a board to appoint in that circumstance.
Yes.
Might sound like a bait and switch, but if that works, could she retire and then you appoint her after, and then you don't have to worry about it? You're still at the same point that you wanted to be at, and then you can experience more
Well,
there.
having been an elected position that changed to an appointed one when I was the assessor, when that happened and we chose to go to the appointed assessor and I was the elected one, I had to reapply for my job.
You could, right?
Yeah, anybody could,
That would be a fix to
I
that
mean,
worry.
anybody that wanted
In
to.
theory, but if, say we had a qualified candidate and that scenario played itself out, is there some way that Brenda could work with that person through a volunteer position in the clerk's office or something? I don't know, or how would we go about kind
How
of?
do you feel about that?
I was gonna bring that up. We've got that vacant position right now. Could Brenda slide into the vacant position and then we could appoint somebody new? She wouldn't be technically the town clerk any longer.
Not volunteer.
Come on.
You guys got plenty of money.
Either that
I don't.
either that or you
Tim
would
does.
just run again.
I'm out.
And then we would switch it after that point. Because you would know what was coming. Well, I mean, Oh.
But the question
Oh, yeah,
is
that's
if she,
Could do that.
if her position becomes empty.
Mhm.
You have to fill that position with the same qualifications of what we require to be voted on. So you guys would still have to find somebody within the town of Wells to take her, cause isn't that one of the qualifications for you have to be a Wells resident to be the clerk? So you guys will
If you're
still have
elected,
to
then
find
they'd have to-
somebody to appoint from town to do this. And it limits you a little bit to going out of town to find the best customer.
Is that contemplated, Leah?
I think there's a hole in the charter, right? And I would have to do a bit more research on this, but it is very clear under the charter that to be an eligible candidate for the Board of Selectmen, you have to be a registered voter in the town. It doesn't say that about the town clerk, unless I've missed something. What it says is that the town clerk, like the Board of Selectmen, are the only two elected officials in town. But it doesn't specifically state that the town clerk must be a registered voter or resident of the town. And I don't think, and I look to the clerk's office because they know these statutes better than I do, but I don't think that there's any requirement for it in statute now. I'm not talking about the town charter. I think the only requirement statutorily is that you be 18. I don't think there's a requirement that one must be under statute a resident of the town in which you're the clerk.
So they could potentially find the best candidate. She could get done in March if you got. You
No,
probably
I'm
don't
not
have-
gonna get done in March.
Whenever you want it, whenever she wants to get done, you could find the right person, have them there, and they could actually run for the position if they run unopposed, and then it would work either way, you'd get the same person, whether you guys ended up appointing them or they get elected in. No matter what happened, you'd have the person that you wanted.
I have a question I didn't understand. So if you're gonna put that question appointed versus elected, and it's question number 2 on the ballot, and people take out papers on March 3rd and they turn them back in with their 25 signatures, they're guaranteed a place on the ballot. That could happen on March 3rd. So if they're the next one down and they get elected, but you've already got that question, how does that work?
So there's a way when you word ballot questions or warrant articles to say one thing is contingent on the other, right? So in this case, you would say the first question is, shall the town enact this charter amendment? And then, you know how it goes, you have the stricken language and it'll say the town clerk shall be elected or strike out elected and appointed. Alright, so say that carries, right? And the town clerk is now, according to the will of the people, an appointed position. But you've had somebody take out papers to run for the town clerk position on the assumption that that prior warrant article does not carry. You would word it and say, if and only if question number 2 fails, comma, shall so-and-so be elected as town clerk. So the person who has put out their papers has to know that their election is contingent upon that prior warrant article failing. I know it's confusing.
Nope, I got it.
Yeah.
So what I don't understand is how you're gonna explain that to the people that they have come in. I mean, I have done a lot of elections. People don't understand a lot of our questions.
I'm sure.
And they
Yes.
always think that we're, up to something by the way we word it. So now we're having them vote on a person who may not get the job,
Yeah, I mean,
even
I
though
think
they
that
win
what-
by.
I totally appreciate that. It's very confusing. What we can do is just try to make it as not confusing, and basically the wording if and only if is pretty clear.
So when they take out papers, we're gonna say, you may not get this job.
Well, I
By the way,
think
pay for your
that's
political
just-
signs.
What's that?
You're gonna pay for
If
their
only one
political
person
signs, they're gonna
takes
pay
out
for all
papers.
that they may not have a
I got a
job.
question.
So is there anything in there that,
Well, no, hang on, I gotta.
there's nothing that would say the elected person could then interview for the appointed job?
So-
That's their
Oh, I
only
think that's,
caveat.
yeah, I mean, that's a.
Quick question.
That's right.
Quick question. So let's say the town clerk had a change of heart and decided to rerun for this election. Let's say that we needed to contemplate this a little longer and we said, well, we're gonna kick this out to the November ballot or something like that. And then the town clerk gets elected, decides, they get sworn in, they don't wanna do it, they just happen to resign, then you have your appointed position that the select board can do.
Well, I think that could happen regardless of which election
Right.
we're talking about.
Right, but yeah, I'm just.
Yeah.
But that's,
Yeah, if there's ever
That's how
a
that would work.
vacancy in
Right.
office, whether it be because of resignation, death, somebody doesn't get elected, anything on that laundry list, this board can now appoint.
But that would backfire if you did that and somebody ran against him and won.
I know.
no,
Now you got a 2-year.
doesn't seem like there's any good answers.
No, I know, I'm
I
just
think
saying.
you're gonna have to do it the way Leah's
Well,
turned out.
well,
And have the 2 questions, one contingent on the other one. I think that's the best way, I mean, it's
It's inherently confusing, but yet if and only if is a pretty strongly worded, simple way of doing that.
Well, I think that's where the education, your public hearings,
Yeah.
that's where you have to explain this to the people. As we put the warrant out, the warrant gets there and we have explanations in the book, this is, and we're just gonna have to do a good job of educating people.
And to the point of the questions that the board has asked, members of the public have asked, there's certainly nothing to prevent this board from considering as an appointee people who put their names into the ring as an elected official.
I mean, if it's my druthers, I think we would start to interview people now.
right.
Or at least get it out there so that we can start, so that, and it could be a contingent appointment. But say, hey, I mean, but I don't wanna have the election happen. She goes on her merry way and all of a sudden, we gotta throw somebody new in there. I think we need to, cause that's gonna take should take at least a month and a half to 2 months to do that process.
I got a question on that, I agree on that, right, but I'm gonna go at it from a point, I applied for that job. And now you're telling me, listen, I'm gonna put you in, get you trained, and if you lose the vote, you don't have the job anymore. And right now, there's nobody applying for these jobs, right, there's no one applying for these jobs, would you really apply for a job and say, yeah, I'll take it, on the, I hope you win the vote, and now I'm not gonna be in that position anymore? I would really struggle with that.
You hire the person, put them in the vacant position that's already there.
And for a lot less money than you would a town clerk.
Well, then you promote them.
I'm just saying, it's very hard to, how many people, there's nobody applying for any jobs, and now you're asking a person to apply for a job that you might have in June.
Well, I mean,
You know, I mean, I just, I struggle with that. I agree with the philosophy on.
No, definitely not, I wouldn't take your job for anything. I'm not that silly. May I just say one thing, we've already said they need more help, correct?
Yep.
Why would it not be possible to go and have people interview to become part of the town clerk's office now, with the possibility that they could be promoted?
that's what I would just
We're not
proposed.
funded for that position
Yeah,
though,
it's not
until the
funded.
voters are.
Well, they would still have a job, no matter
But we don't have
what.
the funding for that position.
Right.
Yeah, oh, until the next budget?
So there's, if we,
I'm funded.
so there's no way to prevent an we can't, if the town clerk decided in 2 weeks that they didn't wanna be here and we went through the whole process of finding a person to appoint to that position, there's no way we can stop the election,
To
right?
put in papers,
No.
as
Yeah.
as the way the charter is drafted now.
No, okay, all right, that's the question that I had.
Maybe unless a little different, but isn't the knowledge and the training for a future career, even if you don't get this career payment, enough? I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just really different, but that seems like a really good opportunity. You can go with that somewhere else after you guys give them like write-off on the training. Hey, you don't get this job, we're gonna at least tell everyone that you got trained for this. You're now certified and backed by the town, you know what you're doing. It's kind of like a college degree for free on a smaller scale.
But but we would hope that the person applying for the job has all those qualifications. All we're trying to teach her is how wells work, or he or she, how wells works, not how the town, I don't wanna hire somebody, I have no idea what this town clerk position's like, just to hire me. I'm looking to hire somebody with experience, and then they're gonna teach her how wells works, not he or she how wells works, not how the town clerk position works.
Mike.
That wouldn't be a very good hire for us.
Do we have anybody internally that might be interested, should that position become available, that might have experience in a clerk's position?
I don't know whether there's interest, we certainly have some experienced people.
Well, that would be an
Right.
interest.
Could they be a liaison to the town clerk's office for a while?
I'm sorry?
Could we assign someone as a liaison to the town clerk's office that's already in-house?
I think some of the people that have that skill set are currently working with the town clerk's office.
Yeah, okay.
So I know we've talked in circles here over and over again, it seems like the only option is the one that you're suggesting is article whatever is, do you vote to change it to an appointed position? And number two, if one fails, then this person will be elected.
I think that's the way
Yeah.
it has to be done, given the fact that just in time, I'm not sure how long the clerk's position is, I think it's a 2 or 3 year. Three. The way, where we are, if this was, the term ended, it's just the world we find ourselves.
And it just happens to be that the election is on the same time that we want to do that, so. And short of that, we could have a town meeting, vote that and then at that point, start looking, and she'll be done in June though, we could do it that way, right?
We could.
The other, couldn't you do it the way Leah says, and I know what Bob's saying, have somebody, but maybe there's a qualified person in that, I was going to point as an interim to balance between the time we hire somebody and.
My perception is we've had some very highly skilled people working,
Yes.
several who are here
Well,
that
that's
are
why
in that
I'm not
office.
trying to put them on the spot where
Yeah.
you take something, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, could we hire an interim if they didn't want the full-time job?
And I think we can work it out. I think the real question today is, do we put this on the ballot?
Yeah, well, I think.
Well, can I just say one more thing? How long does it take to do a special town meeting? I know we had said that, but all we're doing is passing whether or not the town wants to do it. We're not saying, do we want to move this to an appointed,
45 to 60 window.
Yeah,
days.
so that's, I haven't done the math on that, if it's a two-step process. If it's either gonna be really, really tight or not possible, and I look to the clerks if they know off the top of their head what the drop dead date would be if you had, you signed this as a, calling a special town meeting.
Right.
that couldn't happen now, it would have to happen at your next
But at the
meeting.
same time, we could be paralleling that with doing the interviews and finding the person. And then we wouldn't have to have that double question. We'd already would have either voted yay or nay on getting it on the special election on whether we wanted it. So that would take care of that confusion. And so the only thing then would be is at the end of her, when she and even if she just wanted to leave early, we could appoint somebody until the time that her election, her time runs out. But in the meantime, we've got that first question already voted. We've got the two, could we not do that?
Well, the only issue that I can see with that is, well, like, maybe there might be others, but the biggest one that sticks out to me is that we have an office already that appears to be by all rights understaffed, coming up to an election anyway, a tight deadline, we have all our lodging licenses coming out. It just, I don't know, is that too much to ask with the mail-in ballots and everything else to hold a special election this
They got
close?
warrants gotta be put together, I mean,
So if you're doing a special town meeting for that,
Just that one question.
is that changing the charter?
That is changing the charter, but you can do that.
Don't you have to have a certain percentage of voters come out to vote?
Okay, so that is in the town code, and that was an older provision that says, I can't remember that you have to have a certain number, I don't wanna say, threshold number. But then the charter was enacted after those provisions, and I think the law is that anything that's inconsistent with the charter is preempted. So I think that the charter, it would be the thing that dictates, and town meetings go according to the charter. So if that's inconsistent, and I believe, and I'm looking to you, Bob, just because I know you've got the institutional knowledge, you were on the charter committee, that the charter was enacted way after those minimum threshold for special town meetings, right? Okay.
the minimal thresholds were when we had the open
Open town meetings, right, so I think that and there is specific language in the charter, I remember it, that says to the extent that anything in the town code is inconsistent, it is overruled or overridden, so I wouldn't worry too much about that provision, but that's really
Cause
smart
I'm
to
just
think about.
thinking, if enough people don't come out to vote,
Yep.
then it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, no, we don't have a specific number any longer.
But, what we can do is, because obviously time is of the essence here, one of the things that you could do is just to, if in fact there is time to have a special town meeting prior to the June town meeting, which will take some number crunching, that everyone here is aware, this is being broadcast, that we could have public hearings and let that be on the agenda for the next meeting. Okay? Does that sound like
But there's
a plan?
also a cost factor that we,
A cost factor, processing ballots, absentee, all of those things.
Well, is
Do they have to have?
it doable? I mean, it might be time-wise doable, is it staff-wise doable, is it, I mean, there's a lot that has to,
That's the
right,
irony, it's the
right.
town clerk's
Right,
office
I
that's
know,
gonna
I-
have to take on that.
I mean, you might as well find out.
Think that.
I would say that you would find out about that.
Anybody taking a vacation?
Do you have to have the absentee ballots and all that for a town, you do?
Yes,
Okay.
unfortunately, yeah.
How long do you think it's gonna take you to find a qualified person if you advertise today?
Very long time.
2 months,
I-
minimum.
Right, so you could have somebody in here by May,
Mm-hmm.
and that person, if he's, when the ballots come out, your papers come out? Usually they have
March
to-
3rd.
So they have to be back by April something, right?
14th, I think.
Yeah, I was just, didn't know if you could get somebody to run, who you wanted to appoint to run, and then it would just glean through, but you're on a time crunch, you don't even know it.
Well, we can find
We
out
know
what
it.
why don't we find out what the
Now.
cost is and if it's even
Costs about
doable?
$1,500.
I was thinking about $1,500 for a special single ballot.
Well, I don't know, I think
It's just a
they
time,
would
they
probably
have a
paper
time.
ballots
Yeah.
and we would
You don't code the machines.
Yeah, it should.
Just count them, hand
hire
count.
some people to work.
Yeah, right.
Not unless you guys all wanna volunteer.
Well, volunteer.
What if it could?
So I mean, I think it's doable, and that way we'd get, with that question would be done, and we could be looking at hiring.
I think it's the cleanest way to handle this.
Yeah.
Is that realistic, Brenda?
So what happens if it doesn't go the way you kind of want?
The people that took the papers out or?
Back at the same.
Right, I mean, if that doesn't happen, then there's an election, you know, really.
At least you're not finding out on the same day.
Yeah, I know.
But is it doable for your office, do you think?
We have the answer right now.
No, the
It's a lot of work. Right.
There's money in that.
Well, we don't have to decide that tonight, because we
I
can't
can
vote
work-
on it until the next
We
meeting,
don't even know
so
the time.
we can
Time might
have the
be-
town clerk and the town manager
Yeah,
look on what's
find
the
out, give us the
logistics of it, the timing,
but
the
honestly, I
costs,
think that's the
and then
cleanest way.
decide
The
at our
papers are
next
still
meeting.
gonna be available March third, no matter what.
Right, but if we vote, if we have the
When you're doing that, next week?
No, they can take them out, but what's the difference of taking them out, whether or not they might not have a job on June, or they might not have a job at the special town meeting. So it's the same thing, but at least gives us an opportunity to get somebody
So if
hired.
you did a special town meeting, there's a certain number of days that you have to allow to have that happen. If you did a special town meeting and papers went out on March 3rd and came back in with their number of signatures, but you voted at the special town meeting for it to go appointed,
Yep.
then that person would just be notified
Right.
that that job.
No longer exists.
Right, no longer
Right.
exists, right?
And as long as I think that there's transparency and
Yeah.
clearly there is, nobody's going to be surprised, or if they are, they weren't paying attention, right?
Please watch the show.
And the other thing, just to contemplate again, depending on, I'll work with Mike in the town clerk's office to see what the drop dead date would be.
Right.
Is it fair to say this board, it would be willing to have a special select boards meeting to make this happen if, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
Just one quick question, you said that the assessors, I didn't realize this, was once elected
Yeah.
also, and then it went to
Yeah.
appointment. How did that work? Did it work out, everybody was happy?
Yeah, I had a great time.
But it was off.
Everybody was happy with it, nobody complained?
No, it was a smart thing to do. I was the one that was elected, but I was absolutely for that. I mean, you're talking now over a $3 billion valuation here, and you're doing, no, that should have been somebody who was qualified to do that.
And Kathy, can I ask,
I
this
think that's the same
happened,
argument here.
this happened though off cycle, right? The question was put to the voters so that you got to
It was
end
off
your
cycle.
term,
It
your
was off
term before this happened.
But that was before the charter.
Right,
That
so
was-
it's a
that
whole
was-
different.
We just have an
ballgame.
open town.
But
meeting.
still, yeah.
Well, it was on the paper part of the ballot, but
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I know Carrie and Michelle are both here, and I'm sure, and I don't wanna speak for them, but as you're thinking about this, they are currently brought into office by the town clerk. And so they may have questions about how does that look for them as this goes forward. I don't know if there's an answer for that right now, but they're highly skilled in doing.
Well, I should think that there would be an answer.
I wouldn't be, if you're hiring a new assessor, everybody stays who's been working there. It's,
I mean, I can answer that very easily, right? So under state statute, it says that deputy clerks are appointed by the clerk, right? And that I think it's the case whether or not they're elected or not, right? But it doesn't matter. The bottom line is it doesn't matter, is if the person is no longer elected and is not appointing, then the town manager kicks in and you get to fill those positions.
And that's what I wanted to,
Right.
and say, and
Right.
I recognize skill sets, so.
Right.
but the problem you should run into is if it stays elected and somebody, God forbid that we don't know, or just waltzes in,
Right.
gets elected, and they could just say bye-bye, bye-bye, I got my own troop, that's the real problem with having it elected and not having somebody we know running. It's like the treasurer up in, I can't remember where, up in Maine, that only one person was there and it was not a good scenario, so I mean, that's the real bugaboo about.
Well, and I wouldn't mind saying obviously for the record, even though, as a select board member, we're not in charge of hiring rank and file, but I would support keeping both. I like the clerk's office, you guys do a great job, I wouldn't wanna see that change, I mean, that's part of the concern why we
I fully
came.
understand that,
Yeah.
if I were them, I'd have those questions.
And I just wanted to say that as a statement of support, that's what's on my mind.
If this does become an
One
appointed
quick-
position, would we still be facing that issue? If there was a new appointee and they decided they wanted to have their own people, how
No,
that would
that
not,
becomes a higher of than the quote town manager, so they don't control that then.
thank you.
I hope they have some input.
Of course they will.
Okay.
I surround myself with good people, I'm not stupid.
I was just gonna say, I think the problem basically is we've had wonderful town clerks and nobody is looking at the possibility of that not continuing. My entire time here in Wells, which is now 22 years?
That's all?
Yeah, seems longer, huh?
You're young.
But I mean, we have had just terrific town clerks elected, they always got reelected, you know, you never thought that that was gonna change. But with Jessica retiring and now with Brenda retiring, it's like, oh, what might we get? And to have that, as you said, Tim, as well, as an elected position, who we don't know who that's going to be, and we can't even vet their qualifications really. And the same thing you were saying, a treasurer that doesn't know how to balance the books, or somebody who doesn't even know how to issue a dog license. I mean, talk about beach permits and elections and all this other stuff. I mean, it could be a total disaster. Plus, Wells is getting to be a much bigger town even since I came here. And this really is a managerial position. It is not something you can do in the part-time. And there are some towns in the state where it is basically a part-time position because they're very small. But that's not Wells.
Well, just with respect to the rest of the agenda, is there any more discussion from the board, or do we have a consensus? Do
I
we
have a tentative motion, I'm not sure.
Well, let's hear that, maybe we'll correct it as it goes.
Okay, I'll correct as it go, good. I move to schedule a public hearing on February 21st, 2023 at 6 P.M. in the Littlefield Meeting Room, 208 Stanford Road, on the proposal to hold or schedule a special town meeting to vote to change the town clerk's position to an appointed position.
That works if you wanna continue the public hearing and to continue to seek input.
Okay, I move to continue the a public hearing.
Well, this motion is just to whether we're gonna have a public hearing,
Yeah, this is
a
just a
special
public-
town meeting.
I'm sorry, can you rephrase it, Kathy, then? Let me just hear it again.
I move to schedule a public hearing on February 21st, 2023 at 6 P.M. in Littlefield Road on Sanford Road on the proposal to hold and schedule a special town meeting to vote to change the town clerk's position to an appointed position.
So that gets you to the possibility of having one earlier than at the
Yes.
town meeting.
Yes.
And that seems to work, because we don't have to certify the questions for the annual town meeting. I think I heard April, we have till March or April for the certification of the warrant for the annual town meeting, right?
April.
Yeah, so I think that works.
Okay, because at that point, they'll bring all the information on the cost, what's gonna happen, how it's gonna happen, or if it will work, right?
Or you might wanna amend it by saying, or an earlier town meeting, should that be, an earlier Board of Selectmen meeting, should that be indicated, right? Because we talked about if,
Then do it next week.
yeah,
Oh, do you wanna do it next week? We can do it next week if.
I think if I can work
Okay, so if I said I
Yeah.
move to schedule a public hearing on February 21st
or such
or
earlier
earlier,
time
or
is indicated.
such earlier time.
Well, we have posting requirements, we should probably make some attempt to pick that date out now.
Well, here's the thing, this is a public hearing
So we're
right now.
continuing it.
You can continue it,
Oh, okay.
and therefore the posting requirements,
It's been met.
correct. So that's the magic word, continue.
Even if you're changing subject.
Well, I think, let's
Cause
just
right now
see,
you're talking about a public hearing for
let me just look at the agenda.
the position. Now you're talking a public hearing for a special election.
Yeah, but I think that it's reasonably related to the current town clerk position from elected to appointed. I think that the public hearing, I think it's all encompassed within that
I
concept.
don't have a problem with it,
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out.
No, I think if it is noticed as a public hearing to discuss changing the current town position from elected to appointed, part of that whole process contemplates a special, annual, I think it's okay.
Can I just ask a quick question on that? Isn't there a way for us right now in the next, we've been here a long time, to find out if that date is possible?
Yeah.
Like, isn't there somebody that could
Yeah.
run? I'll give you $50 out of the Exted fund, if you run and find out the number, and that would just save us from even doing this
Yeah,
meeting,
that's
cause we,
fine.
how could we do the meeting, we can't have a special election anyway, I mean.
Yeah, they're
isn't
more
there some
agenda, I
num-
can
Isn't there a
work,
number?
let me work with the
I don't have a
town
way to
clerk
give you
right
$50
now.
a
Can
month.
we do
Just
that?
table this then.
Can we work?
That's what I'm saying, table
Further on the meeting.
and go on.
You bring it back.
Okay, well,
Let's do
Cindy,
that.
they're gonna
Okay.
table this right now and then bring it back.
Okay, I move to table this discussion, or this hearing right now, and bring it back later in the meeting.
Second.
all those in favor? 5-0.
We have an executive session, but that's not for a while, right?
That's a while.
That'll be one. All right.
You got sleeping bags.
What was the latest one that we had? What was it, a 10:31? It was about
Yeah,
over
right,
a year
that was
ago,
right,
yeah.
Let's not try to break that record.
No. All right, so next up, we have a public hearing on release of funds up to 30,000 from the Inland Golf Reserve Fund for comprehensive plan
Continue,
updates.
Biz.
Now, originally, we had said 50,000, it got posted as 30,000. We'll have a public hearing on this amount, but I think, Mike, what did we come to the conclusion? Do we need to
We
table
actually
that?
have a new notice, for 50,000
Right.
for a public
But
hearing,
we
so
need-
we would ask you to consider having this in the future.
Yeah, well, and knowing that, is there anybody that wants to speak on that at this time where it is posted as a public hearing in case anybody came out specifically for that?
You can put it on next Tuesday, if you're gonna meet next Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll add more work.
Well, we're supposed to meet right off with the people.
This will be for the 21st because of our posting requirements, to move that to the 50,000.
Alright, cause we meet with them we're supposed to have our next meeting the 24th.
Well, why can't we do 30,000 now and do 20,000?
You could, and we could repost for 20.
Okay, that's a good idea, Bob. Great idea.
We could do that.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, any members of the public on the 30,000? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0. Bob had a good idea, why don't we just approve the 30,000 and then we can put a 20,000 for the next, that way they have some money.
I move to approve the release of funds up to 30,000 from the Inland Golf Reserve Fund 0713 for comprehensive plan updates.
Should we schedule a public hearing at the same time? For the next one?
So schedule a public
No, we
hearing.
don't, because we don't have the document written.
Oh, I thought you had it.
It's at 50,000.
Oh, you got
Cross it
50,
out.
we can't cross it
Yeah.
out, okay. Okay, second.
All those in favor? 5-0.
We'll be in touch to ask you to sign it
Yep.
shortly.
Excellent, thank you. Next, we have the State Company Inc., DBA Steakhouse, 1295 Post Road, Wells, application for a full-time malt wine and spirits liquor license. Would any members of the public like to speak on this?
I move to close the public hearing and grant the license.
All those in favor? 5-0. Next, we have Ventures Endurance Events LLC, 51 Dynamic Drive, Unit 3, Scarborough, application for a mass gathering permit for the Maine Coast Half Marathon and 5K road race to be held on May 6th and 7th, 2023 at Wells Harbor Community Park. Anyone from the public? Seeing none?
I move to close the public hearing and grant the license.
All those in favor? 5-0. Next, we have a Running Passion, 123 Graham Street, Biddeford, application for a license for an incorporated civic organization for liquor license and lottery operations to be held from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. on May 6th and 7th, 2023 at the Wells Harbor Community Park. Anyone from the public? Seeing none?
I move to close the public hearing and grant the license.
All those in favor? 5-0. Next, we have Senior Needs Committee of Wells and Agunquit, 300 Post Road, Wells, application for games of chance. Anyone from the public? Seeing none?
I move to close the public hearing and grant the license.
All those in favor?
No, I abstain.
Okay, so we got 4, 0, and 1 abstention. Next, we have Senior Needs Committee of Wells and Agunquit, 300 Post Road, Wells, application for a game of chance for Beano Bingo. Anyone from the public? Seeing none?
I move to close the public hearing and grant the license.
Second.
All those in favor? 4, 0, 1.
Thank you.
On to good news.
Well, there was bad news.
Oh, well, thanks, Mike. That's a good start.
That was the library, but the good news is we're working hard toward a recovery program and working with our insurance carrier and we're moving forward. Cindy and her team have done a great job trying to recover as much as they can to date. The future will be closed for a while, although curbside pickup begins now. Okay, So we'll make the best out of it that we can as we recover.
And we're also doing some programs out in the community. We're gonna hold story time at the activity center tomorrow and do stuff like that, so.
So we're gonna do story time on Friday at the activity center for the kids?
We have permission from Tina to use it. If we're open, we'll have it at the library. If not, we'll do it at the activity center.
My grandson will be happy.
Excellent.
That's as good as I can get right now.
All right. Well, yeah, it's not bad. Anything from the board?
Yeah, I guess I gotta say, well, I don't have to say, I'm proud to say that the Wells Wrestlers won the dual state championship, which means dual meet state championships, also finished with a 22-0 record in that duel, so
unbelievable.
They could probably win Class A, B, whatever they want. They're a very good wrestling team. Great job by Scott and his staff and all the kids. It's nice to have another championship at Wells, and they've done a good job. I know Kathy's grandson's a big part of it, but so it's cool to see grandson. Sorry, and then the basketball team, women's basketball team, will probably finish 2 or 3, probably 2, and be in the tournament starting over February break, which is around the 17th. I don't have the exact date of their game, but look at it, and that'll be in Portland at the Expo. The boys have a outside shot. We'll see. They play tomorrow night against York. It's not, it's a pretty far outside shot, but they do have a shot, and so I just wanted to give that as my update from and we had a little bit of stuff at the junior high too with similar to the library, and they're working hard, and we're all over it at the end after that storm. And I just real quick, I wanna thank Carol. Carol helps out me greatly with the weather lately. We had a nice weather app, and Chief Dupree, sorry. We had a running, I thought you left, so I wasn't gonna give you any credit. But we had a running text during those storms over the last couple of weeks, and back and forth about different things. They got a great new weather app. I sat in on the Zoom or conference call with that. They got a great new weather app, and it helps out greatly just to know what was going on. I will wanna say publicly that when you cancel school, I know people, and I understand it's a hardship with people with kids. I don't wanna excuse that. But understand it's always done in the idea of safety. It's never done with like, hey, let's take the day off, it's gonna be fun. For me, it is. I mean, for me, I'll be honest with you, I'm like excited. I get to have it, but I know I'm gonna make it up in June. I'd rather have June. But it is always about the safety of kids. I know Mr. Daly was in touch with Joanne, and then I was in touch with people. It's never about anything else but the safety of kids. It's not like, hey, let's give the teachers a day off. And I think we like to say that we were tough when we were young and we didn't have snow days. Well, things have changed in the world and stuff, and you gotta look at safety first. So I do wanna say that as we go through these snows. I hope to have no more, I gotta be honest with you, but cause it's now remote days, and that's another whole challenge, but thank you to them for a great job.
So, anything else from the board on good news? Anyone in the public?
I've got one.
Okay.
Last Saturday, the Wells Rotary Club took part in the Day of Warming, which is a very appropriate day for that.
Yes,
We
it
got about
was.
70 people out there, and I just wanna thank all the volunteers that came out to help. We put on a nice pasta dinner or lunch. The membership of the Rotary is down a little bit right now after the pandemic, so if anybody out there is interested in coming to a meeting, they meet on the first and third Wednesday of the month at For the Love of Food and Drink Saltwater Farm. It's a lunch meeting, 11:30 a.m. But again, thank you for all those that came out to volunteer.
And the center really you got great feedback, I can tell you.
It's a great program, they do a great job, the music was great too.
We're seeing Saturday.
Excellent. Anything else?
Just a question, do we have any idea how long the library is gonna be closed? Because I have a meeting scheduled there on the 16th of this month, and I will have to move it. And I wasn't sure how long that was gonna be.
Yeah, at this point, we're day to day.
Day to day.
The carpet's almost dry. But I hope to have a better idea tomorrow or Thursday. If you need to know before then, I would probably plan on moving it.
Well, it's almost it's in the Sentinel this week, okay? Because I'm early on stuff usually. But if I had to move it, it might be possible, I don't know. I'll have to talk with Park and Recs. Maybe they would have an exception to be able to use it to the active. But anyway, I will be in touch often.
Okay, that's fine, we'll
Thank
talk
you.
tomorrow.
Excellent.
Cindy, do you need help, volunteers, putting stuff back or anything?
So there's nothing to put back, none of the materials were damaged, the epicenter was my office, and then just water everywhere on the floor, so, right now it's basically getting that carpet dried out. So. Thank you though.
Excellent. Well, moving on from good news, we're gonna move on to open to the public for the first time this evening. We'll have 10 minutes set aside for public comment, questions, etc. I ask you to come up, state your name at the podium. Anybody like to come up and speak at the podium?
Just real quick, I was gonna piggyback on Scott said, we did our day of warming on the 28th. The place was packed.
Yeah.
You couldn't fit another person in there. We served over 90 and had a great time. Some of the guys brought their kids, and I don't know if you heard about it.
Yeah.
Olivia singing and Kevin Travis' daughter, who's a little peanut. They loved it. And she was dancing with a couple of the older gents, and everybody had a great time. And we also got a volunteer from the school to help us, which was nice. And so we've got a good connection there to try to get the kids their volunteer hours. So that worked well.
We're providing, Trailblazers karaoke people are providing the entertainment for this Saturday, so we're excited about it. It's always fun.
For Mike, that entertainment's questionable at best, but.
Only if I'm singing is questionable.
Well, anything else? Seeing none, we'll move on to current agenda items. The first of which is review and action on accounts payable and payroll warrants. How does everything look? Yep.
I move to approve and sign the accounts payable warrant dated February 7th, 2023 in the amount of $1,164,933.22 and the general assistance warrant dated February 7th, 2023 and the amount of $2,389.70.
Second. All those in favor? 4-0, one abstention. Company that I work for, I believe, has a payment in there, so. Moving on to update, discussion, and action on committees, projects, issues, purchases, and personnel. First we already did. Next is discussion and action on a proposed easement and land swap between the town and Cardinelli's Real Estate LLC relating to portions of property located on or near Harbor Road. Now, we've continued that, I believe, correct? So do we wanna
We made a
just
motion to
take?
continue.
Table it.
Yep, just table it. So we have a motion to table it.
I make a motion that we table item B.
Second. Alright, all in favor, 5-0, thank you. Next, we'll move on to discussion and action on the re-shingle project for the Wells Harbor Pavilion and Gazebo. We have Mike York and Ken Lowell to present to the board.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
Good, how are you?
Good, we brought some props, I guess.
Phenomenal.
I had some pictures of the gazebo pavilion that are getting replaced, not that you necessarily need them, you're probably all very familiar with
That came off the
Oh, great. It's in good shape. It's really nice.
Yes.
You make a nice fire pit.
That's right.
Oh, no, oh, yeah, sorry. I thought they were like
Here, Cassie, if you want another one, here you go.
I thought they were options.
this wasn't getting strong.
Thank you.
You guys want these samples?
There's that cedar tree.
So we're gonna go to asphalt.
Alright, so yeah, we were looking to get a approval or guidance to re-roof the pavilion and the gazebo, both currently, that shingle that's up there right now, well served its purpose and we're ready to move on to something new. We've got a couple prices if we continued with cedar shakes, it'll be upwards between the two buildings, upwards of 100,000. And if we go with asphalt, at the current rate, it'd be somewhere around 40,000.
That's including labor too.
That's including labor and material. So just looking for the advice and permission from the board.
What's the difference in how many years it will last?
So they call it a lifetime shingle, it's a 50-year shingle really,
The asphalt or the?
The asphalt, they don't give a warranty on the cedar. You know, some of the roofers say it's 15 years, I'd expect to get closer to 30 out of it really.
But with the cedar shingles, you really should be treating them like every 4 or 5 years.
I agree.
Putting,
Yeah, there's a
treatment
few
on
other
them.
things too, you know,
which becomes another expense.
Yeah.
Exactly, the capping process with cedar shakes leaves more room for error or you know, possible issues with it down the road. You know, I'm an advocate for the asphalt personally. I think that's
It makes sense.
That's gonna make sense.
Especially down there, I mean, it gets a lot of weather down there. And
I agree in
I
that,
think the asphalt shingles would certainly hold up.
So there are multiple colors over there, or is there just one?
We brought a couple colors, the, you know, the charcoal or the onyx is pretty standard, but the way it was painted last time around, it looks more like the brown one that I provided for you guys. I didn't know if we were trying to keep some, you know, continuity with what's already down there, or if the brown would, you know, be like, you know, what you guys would like to go with. You know, both of the Harbor Master building and the new clam building are both the onyx shingles, not that they're in the same, you know, but they're in the same area anyway. So whatever
The shed next to the shed that's right up against the gazebo, that's got the tan colored asphalt shingles already on it.
That wouldn't take much to change that out,
No, it wouldn't.
to make them match. And the only good thing about doing the black, if you, they're a lot easier to match if you ever have to, you know, replace a row with something that get blown off. The colored ones tend to fade and if you can't really patch them.
Yeah, lot differences.
I think the onyx would look nice down there.
Is onyx the color of the black?
It is, yes.
You wanna see Kathy?
No, I like the black ones, I like that. I just wanted to make sure I had the right name.
Yeah, fair enough.
So our thought was guidance from the board, which then would be the springboard for us to go out to RFP.
Well, I like the onyx too. Any disagreement with that?
Nope.
No.
So those gonna stay down okay with the increased wind down in that area?
Yeah, definitely. I think once they get that, you know, that first high heat of the springtime or whatnot, they're pretty well welded down there. And you know, you've always got the occasional cap issues. It's an easy replacement and an easy fix, but I think really that building where it's a hipped building and it really doesn't have any gable ends, I think you're probably less likely to see blow-offs. Whereas, you know, a gable end of a building up at the eaves, you do see a little more damage during wind or whatnot. So I think it's the perfect, you know, the perfect spot for that application personally.
That works. Awesome. Well, do we need to take a motion on that, or just recommendation?
I think a recommendation, if the board's consensus was that you're okay with the asphalt and perhaps the onyx, if that's the choice, that gives us direction.
Okay, that's good. That's what I would go with.
You need us to authorize you to go out to bid, or?
That would probably be good, yeah, if you would do that, I think that makes sense.
Alright, can we get a motion on that?
Yep, I make a motion for the reshingle project for the Wells Harbor and Pavilion gazebo, go out for RFP.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0.
Thank you.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much for your time.
Thanks for the presentation.
I'm sorry?
Is there a date that we're looking at doing this?
I'd like to get it done probably in April, if weather permitting, so that when we go to rent these locations out, they look nice, they're well cared for.
It'll be all done.
When we had the warrant, we've only been
Put them up
right,
in your bedroom?
No, probably not.
Living room maybe.
Yeah, maybe in the winter.
Yeah, I said vote at the same time.
Do we know how
That's
long
how
it's
it-
gonna
that's how it's
take?
done now.
Just an estimate?
Just wanted to make sure, thank
Do
you.
you do them?
Yes.
What would you think, Kenny? You're talking 40 or 50 square?
You know, where it's the bid process, it depends on who wins the bid. I mean, some larger companies would have that blown out in 2 or 3 days. If a smaller company does happen to win the bid, I could see it extending out over a week or so. But I think that's a reasonable expectation. I plan on having a bid hopefully, written up and approved by,
Sure, okay.
hopefully by the end of the week so that we can kind of, get right on it and make sure we have
We
something.
can have our
lined up.
numbers back by early March, we can award the bid through you, and then we'll
Maybe
be
get it
ready to
done
go.
by April, May.
And I
April, May.
I could even include that in part
Right.
of the bid
Should
if
be one of the
that's what
conditions.
you'd like me to do is, to be completed by.
Cause it really starts to get busy down there, June.
Yeah,
It does, from my standpoint, I always look at Memorial
Right, let it
weekend
be
as,
before that.
too late. So a week before that at least would be, ideal, so as long as
If
that
we're
works.
working on that building anyway, could we take those signs down? We'll arrange to get some volunteers to paint them and we'll get them. If you guys can put them
Makes
back
great
up
sense.
again.
Yeah, that
I
makes
just don't
sense.
think anybody wants to be on a ladder that isn't used to it, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good, and however I can help with that too, please, let me know. Awesome, alright, thanks everyone.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
Kenny.
you, Ken.
Appreciate it.
Alright, well, moving on to discussion and action to schedule a public hearing on spring thaw road postings. Any discussion from the board on that? Standard housekeeping stuff, we have motion.
I move to schedule a public hearing on February 21st, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the Littlefield Meeting Room, 208 Sanford Road, to review the spring thaw road postings.
Second. All those in favor? 5-0. Next, we have discussion and action to approve the mutual aid agreement between Kennybunk Port and Wells, and authorize the town manager to sign the agreement. Anything from the board?
I move for approval of the mutual aid agreement between Kennybunk Port, and Wells, and authorize the town manager to sign the agreement.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0. Next, we have discussion and action on the discontinuance of accepting commercial brush at the transfer station. I will be abstaining from voting on this topic. I'll participate in conversation from a factual standpoint only if I can contribute, so.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay, all right, so we're just, okay. We ready for a motion?
Yep, if there's no discussion around that, yep.
Okay.
I had this, I guess the motion, you can make the motion when we
Yeah.
have the discussion.
Okay, that's right, yeah, that's the right way to do it anyway, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
I move to continue, oh, no, sorry, I had that written for something else. I move to schedule a public hearing on February 21st, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the Littlefield Meeting Room, 208 Sanford Road, on the discontinuance of accepting commercial brush at the transfer station.
Second.
Discussion.
I actually have no, I wanna have the discussion at the, at the meeting.
yeah,
I have no-
sure.
It's, I was not thinking clearly. I wanna have the hearing.
Yeah, okay,
Discuss,
no
yes.
problem. All right, well,
So-
Do we vote?
Bob, go ahead.
When we talked about commercial brush, does that include leaves and grass clippings and all that?
Yeah.
Commercial, yeah.
I mean, so that is included in brush, cause that's what we had talked about when we had the meeting with the recycling committee, that it was gonna include all of that.
We should probably add the latter leaves into that, maybe amend, I would say amend the motion, because I could
Yep.
see where that could be construed as unclear.
I mean, brush to me is sticks and
Yeah.
twigs.
Yep, no, you're right, and their bill is two different line items by the transfer station
Yeah.
currently too.
Okay. I move to amend the public hearing on February 21st, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the Littlefield Meeting Room, 208 Sanford Road, on the discontinuance of accepting commercial brush and leaves at the transfer station,
Grass clippings.
and grass clippings. Anything else?
Got it.
Flowers?
Second.
All those in favor? 4-0-1. Next, we will move on to discussion and action on updates, personnel and committee assignments, resignations and issues. First, we have appointment of Philip Breton as a regular member to the Harbor Advisory Committee with term to expire August 2023.
I move to appoint Philip Breton as a regular member to the Harbor Advisory Committee with term to expire August 2023.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0. Next, we have the appointment of Thomas Pulsifer as a regular member to the Zoning Board of Appeals with term to expire November 2025.
I move to appoint Thomas Pulsifer as a regular member to the Zoning Board of Appeals with term to expire November 2025.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0. 5-0, yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay. Next, we have the appointment of Joshua Morel as an associate member to the Zoning Board of Appeals with term to expire November 2024.
I move to appoint Joshua Morel as an associate member to the Zoning Board of Appeals with term to expire November 2024.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0. Next, we have the appointment of Martin Tekezian as a regular member to the Energy Advisory Committee.
I move to appoint Martin Tekezian as a regular member to the Energy Advisory Committee.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0. Next, we have discussion and action to accept donations and bequests. First, we have $4,000 donation from Friends supporting the Wells Public Library to the Wells Public Library for purchase of furniture and improvements in the teen area. Next, we have a $20,123 donation from Fidelity Charitable and Forbes Family Foundation to the town of Wells to be used for general assistance, food and fuel. Next, we have a $10,123 donation from Fidelity Charitable and Forbes Family Foundation to the Wells Recreation Department to be used for equipment and sports programs. Next, we have a $300 donation from William and Eleanor Andrews to the town of Wells for the Fuel Assistance Program Fund. And lastly, we have a $75 donation from Kennybunk Savings Bank to the Wells Public Library in recognition of KSB employee Patrick Terrialt's volunteer efforts in our community.
I move to accept the generous donations and write letters of thanks to the donors.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0. Moving on to discussion and action on approving minutes of the January 17th and January 19th, 2023 Selectmen's meetings. Everything look good? Excellent, we have a motion.
I move for approval of the January 17th and the January 19th, 2023 Selectmen meeting minutes.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0.
Oh, yes, I was there. Okay,
had
I
to
came late.
abstain,
Oh, you did? Okay.
From one and not from the other, I think, right?
Yeah, which one did you miss?
I missed the special one, the one with the,
It must have been the,
19th, Tim,
thank you.
what was it?
The 19th.
19th, that was a special meeting.
Yeah, but I came later, so I,
So I wasn't, it doesn't matter when you come.
well, I know, but I was gonna, I was gonna abstain too, cause I thought I saw that I was, I'm sorry, I was thinking that I was on the list that wasn't there, but I thought I came late, yeah, I did come later.
Do we wanna split it out into two votes on that? Do we wanna take one for the
Okay,
17th?
I move,
What's that?
Did 2 votes,
Sorry.
it's cleaner.
Yeah, perfect.
okay, I move for approval of the January 17th Selectmen meeting minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
I abstained from that.
All right, 4-0-1.
Yep.
Were you here?
I'm not really sure now, now you got me all confused. Yes, I was, I came late.
17th, everybody was here.
I did, cause I just missed the first part.
I thought I wasn't here on the 17th.
Well, you got in that coffee cup.
You missed the 19th.
It's been a long day.
No, I hear you.
Who's on first?
All right, so we got 5-0 on that one. We
Okay.
have a motion for the 19th.
Yes, I move for approval of the January 19th, 2023 Selectmen meeting minutes.
Second.
All those in favor? 4-0-1. Thank you.
For the record, I think it's important that Kathy's here too.
Oh, no, I came late to that, that's all. Yeah.
You can have some
Well-
fun.
Yeah.
Kathy's noted on line 36.
Oh, shoot, I missed line 36, I knew I
Join the
did.
meeting at 5 p.m. I don't know,
Alright.
I wasn't here, I'm just reading.
Getting late, everybody's getting slap happy.
Yep.
All right, so next we have open to the public for the second time this evening for 10 minutes. We ask anybody that wants to speak to keep it to 3 minutes, everybody has a chance. Any members of the public like to speak at this time? Carol, I see you stepped right up, why don't you come right up to the podium?
Jody made me.
Well, that's fine.
The public hearing that you scheduled in terms of, oh, me? I gotta climb over you or Jody.
That's awful nice of you.
Yeah, I know. So Jody reminded me that the public hearing to talk about the acceptance of commercial brush should also include the recommendation, a public hearing on the recommendation from the Solid Waste Committee to adjust the fees for residents to take brush and grass and leaves to the transfer station.
That's right, because they proposed an increase.
Yes. So they proposed 2 items, not accepting commercial as well as the fee adjustment.
Didn't we do that back when we did the transfer station
No, we
No.
split it into
Yeah.
two and we didn't touch that one just to
That is true.
make sure we didn't get in. Alright, well, we'll have to go back and amend that one then, I guess.
Well,
I would appreciate that way we could do one public hearing.
Alright,
because it was so simple.
well, let's double back and we wanna amend that, just to include to review the fee structure as well.
Okay, alright.
Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome. Sorry to do that.
I move to schedule
Alright,
a public hearing on February 21st, I am amending my previous motion. I move to schedule a public hearing on February 21st, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the Littlefield Meeting Room, 208 Sanford Road, on the discontinuance of accepting commercial brush, grass, and leaves, and on the proposal by the
Solid
Wait.
Waste Committee.
the Solid Waste Committee for the difference in fees for the residential fees.
second. All those in favor?
It's difficult.
5-0, perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Anyone else? Seeing none, move on to town manager's report. Mike?
I'll be very brief. I just want to again compliment the wonderful staff that serves this community. They have pivoted with multiple storms. One thing that we do is we try to meet every Tuesday as a department head meeting, that has proven very successful. Rebecca puts those into some really quality notes that we share amongst our staff. And one of the things that we're working on now is every department head has presented at least 2, if not more, 3 goals sometimes on what they hope to achieve over the next fiscal or calendar year. And I'll be meeting with each to see how I can aid and support them in achieving those goals. But they have been wonderful and I applaud them tirelessly, just to say thank you for the good work that has happened. You've really responded in some really difficult times over the last 6 or 8 weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Now, do we have our executive sessions coming up? I see that the lawyer and Leah, I shouldn't call her the lawyer, Leah and the clerks have not come back.
I think she'll probably be ready to come back in shortly if we need to, and if not, we can take it out of order, cause I have one with the chief to
Alright,
be here.
what's that?
Well, chief and I will have something to present if Leah's not ready.
Okay, well, and the other thing too, I know that Selectman Foley had just asked that we have just a brief discussion surrounding the idea that do we wanna open up a day down at the transfer station for residents to bring in brush for free from the storm? Maybe this would be an appropriate time to bring that up, where it didn't come up in the brush topic.
I mean, I was just saying, I mean, the last time we had a major storm where we lost a lot of branches and trees on people's property, we allowed them on a certain day to bring them to the transfer station, and we didn't charge them for it, just so they can clean up around their yards. Most people aren't cleaning up I'm not cleaning up my yard right now, I'll just wait till the spring to do it. But a lot of people have a lot of branches and, pieces of trees that have come down and also around their houses, along the side of the road and stuff. That, people, if they knew they could pick it up from the side of the road near their house and bring it up there for no charge, they could help clean up our town too. Cause there's a lot down around the town. So it just was a thought that we did it, I can't remember exactly what storm it was, but it was one we lost a lot of trees.
I think it was Mother's Day storm in 2010, if I'm not mistaken.
Could have been, yeah.
Big windstorm right around that
Yeah,
time.
it could have been. But that was just a thought of seeing if that's something that the board.
The only concern, well, I have a couple, but the biggest concern I have is how we would police that just to prevent abuse where we're running. We have the transfer stations currently overrun, it looks like, with material, and I don't know if we have any money in budget to deal with it as is, so. I think that the last time we had bids, we had one at 25.6 to clean it out, and another one at 26.2 to clean it out. The winning bid was much lower, but it turns out that one didn't make it to a licensed transfer station, so I don't think we're gonna get that deal again, so. That's just something to consider too, is how much that might potentially add, and is it going to the stated intent of helping residents, or is it being abused by people from potentially out of town where we don't have a sticker process in place?
Well, I mean, if we made it in April.
Right.
And they'd had the stickers by then. I mean, what we did was we set a specific date on a Saturday. say Saturday, April 15th is the day that we'll accept brush.
Not really good burning.
I don't think we can legally do it anymore, I think we got
We
dinged on
can't
it.
have a big bonfire?
I think we got dinged on it.
I mean, in the
We
pit,
call it
On the
homecoming.
pit?
yeah.
Oh, yeah?
No, not in our pit, but I mean in
Yeah, the town pit?
town pit. We'll bring skates just in case.
I like it, I like the idea because I have as you drive around town, that they're sitting on the side of the road and
A lot of it's
there's a lot
frozen
of
though.
question, who's supposed to clean it up? I know that I've had a couple of neighbors come over to me and say, who's supposed to clean this up? And I, you. But, you know, I think it would maybe make it easier for those people that are questioning whether they could clean it up to get rid of it, I think, too, and 'cause it is close to the road now and all that stuff, I don't know.
I mean, you couldn't clean it up now, cause
No, I mean,
it's frozen in the
right.
ground.
Right, I was
but-
gonna say, it's frozen, I can't get it out.
But I mean, if we picked a date like in April,
Carol, do you have any thoughts?
We are built to the brim and overflowing at the transfer station right now. And as John said, our bids last time were around $26,000. Jody reminds me continuously, I only have $25,000 available to clean up the material that's there. And that will not do it, that will not clean up what we already have. And we haven't increased the fees associated with brush yet, so we don't have an additional revenue stream. I just honestly don't know where I would put the material.
but you're gonna get it anyways. I mean, that's the problem. The residents are gonna clean up their yard at some point and they're gonna head your way.
They are, which is why I've gotta figure out how to clean up what we've got today. We are to address everything right away line to right away line, and we've started doing that. We're out chipping, cutting and chipping. Today, we did a survey of all the town roads, we did not do development, but all the town roads, of all the widowmakers that are hanging. And we got a good handle on those that exist that we've got to bring down. And I'm not exactly sure how we're gonna pay for all that, but that's tomorrow's project to figure that out, cause we've gotta get those down. And it looks like the totals were up around, let's see, 50, those are up around 90 widowmakers that we need to bring down. And that was, poor David driving around by himself at about 10 miles an hour. So when he was on 9B, I think he probably missed some trying to go slow. So we've got those to get down and chip those up and take care of it. So I think when it comes to the brush disposal, probably the prudent thing to do is let me figure out how far the 25 grand we've got will go to cleaning up what we have. What we are gonna be able to chip and put into the woods versus haul there ourselves, and come to you with a complete plan instead of pieces. And then see what we can do, maybe in April if we can get it cleaned up. The problem is when we did the free before, we never climbed out of the hole, unfortunately. So.
Well, again, it was just a thought.
Yeah, no, it's worth discussion, that's a good discussion.
But I mean, again, Carol's gonna have to do something, cause the brush is coming. I mean, it's just
But with the increased fee structure, we'll be able to at least offset the cost of removing it as opposed to free. You know, and I guess that was my other concern on it too, as we talk about the enterprise run to fund the transfer station. I mean, I drive around to some of my clients who take care of the trees in their property and have incurred considerable expense to do that. And there's no limbs down in their yard, so essentially their taxes are gonna piggyback somebody who maybe neglected an arborist recommendation to take a tree down or something. I struggle with that as well, just talking about an enterprise fund for the transfer station and then talking about incurring expense on private property. So that was,
I mean, we're seeing material getting pulled to the road these days. And that's gonna happen too, that's just human nature and we're prepared for that.
curbside, but you guys are just gonna chip it into the woods, and I mean, there it lies.
Woods wherever we can.
Yeah.
Yep, but that's gonna be a long range project, there's a lot of material down out there.
Hmm. Well, the good news is I talked to some gentlemen today that were relishing in it because they were out getting free firewood, so that's the good news.
Yes. There've been been a lot of folks out doing that, and more power to them. I'm not gonna say, please come and do it, but if you wanna take the risk and do it safely, fine.
Now I have a question, I mean, could we facilitate something like that, where if there are people who might go and remove a large piece of wood from someone's yard, maybe we could get together a list of names that somebody could contact that would go and just get the bigger stuff out of someone's yard if they didn't wanna, if people were I mean, I know people literally that are going around the sides of the road cutting firewood, there might be people that were willing to do that, and it might accomplish the same need, who knows?
I don't think we'd wanna facilitate that.
No, maybe not,
From
just an idea.
a liability standpoint.
Yeah, probably not, you're probably right.
Be recommended.
Injuries or.
Yeah.
The lawyer's going.
I mean.
Yeah.
This is the insurance guy.
And this is for a later date, but Mike, did Kennebunk have a tree warden? I really think this town needs
They
a
do.
tree warden, I, you know, and that could help us with some things.
Mm.
I've been thinking of that for years.
Yeah.
That we don't have a tree warden, we really, maybe
They
should
go
think
out and
about that.
assess trees that need to be trimmed
I
or
mean, that way
removed.
David doesn't, I mean, we have a real tree, you know, no
Yeah,
offense
we
to
don't-
David, I
We
don't,
don't have an on-staff arborist.
right.
David and I look at things and go, looks dead to me, what do you think? That's not a good arborist.
Not if it's dead.
Not if it's
It's a
dead, that's
stipend.
right, Mark, you're right.
It's usually a
But
stipend
John, I
position.
mean, you went through arborist
Hmm.
training, and it's more than just look at it to see if it grows leaves. It's a lot more intense than that.
Oh, yeah,
A lot more intense.
and legally, I mean, an arborist is really the only one that can give recommendations on tree health, so that's the extent of it.
I mean, working on the North Shore of Massachusetts, I had experience with the tree warden Nazis in Massachusetts, and they literally would prohibit me from cutting a tree until I tried trimming it and fertilizing it and doing all these things. And it could be 2 years or 3 years of this tree dying and dropping limbs in the road before the tree warden would allow it to be cut. I think Maine would come up with a much more logical approach to something like that. But I would feel better with an arborist making the decision rather than me.
Can we add that to an agenda item discussing the idea of a tree warden, maybe seeing some similar towns models? I've had people express interest in me, licensed arborists that would be interested in applying.
Probably get you a tree committee information as well, which includes the tree warden if you'd like.
Yeah, it'd be interested in seeing some models that towns have used.
Okay.
That might also give the town some avenue too to maybe, I don't know, enforce that's a licensed trade, and just like you have to have a license to do electrical work or plumbing, that might help make sure that proper practices are being followed as well if we had somebody that was dealing with it. Excellent.
More regulations.
Hey, the state made the rules, not us. Well, moving on, we had tabled the item on the clerk's office. I see that Attorney Ration is back. What did we find?
So, drum roll, right? I will just say with the extremely able assistance of the clerk's office, we've come to the conclusion that yes, in fact, you can have a special town meeting prior to, you can. But I knew there were provisions under statute relating to how you have to enact a charter amendment revision or an adoption. And it actually says that, oh shoot, I just lost it. Bottom line is that we were concerned about those provisions in the town code that says you have to have a certain threshold of population. That doesn't apply, but under state statute, it does say that if a majority of ballots cast on any question to amend a charter, it becomes effective provided the total number of votes cast for and against the question equals or exceeds 30% of the total votes cast in the last gubernatorial election. So that's not nothing, right? And we looked at the numbers. It looks like at the last gubernatorial election, total votes cast were 6,711. That gets us to 2,000 votes at a special town meeting. So you can have it, but whether it would actually have enough voters there to pass it. And that, I guess, thinking about this theoretically, the charter is the governing document of the town. They wanna make sure there's enough voters there to vote on it. So can you have one? Yes. Practically speaking, is it going to get you there? Probably not. So I leave that to your good consideration.
Well, we should start with the good news first.
Right. I know how to lead, I know what to lead with.
We have to go back to your original.
Yep, the original one, that's the way it's gonna go.
Yep, this is what's gonna happen. Oh, well.
Thank you to the people.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
we tabled that, are we gonna take a motion on setting a public,
We don't want.
We don't want one.
So
We
We don't
got-
want one.
No, we're just going to,
we had the public
Move along.
hearing.
So it's fair to say that you're going to put this forward and I will draft something for a warrant article and make sure it's certified for the town meeting?
So we just have to vote, go back and vote to put it for the June meeting.
Yeah.
Put the question.
right, so we don't need,
No
oh, wait, so
special,
we
yeah,
just,
no.
You've had your public hearing, I think you should have another one as you always do on all of your questions as you approach town meeting.
yes, okay,
Right.
So for right now, tonight,
now.
Yeah.
we have
We
to
close
vote
the
It's a
public-
motion to
move it forward.
advance.
I think you can, yeah, and should. It's a regular agenda item, right?
right.
Discussion and action on.
Motion to close and advance.
It says discussion and action on whoops, I have the wrong one. Which one is it?
We wanna close the public hearing and then get a motion to advance that to the,
Yeah, I will say, actually, I don't see this as a regular action item, but that's
Right, I
not
don't
a
think it
problem.
is.
You just do it at your next meeting.
Well, it says, public hearing to discuss changing his current town clerk position from elected to appointed, and then there's a motion under it for something to happen.
Well, just in case, but there was no motion made, there's no suggested motion, well, of course, we didn't know what we were gonna do.
Yeah.
But if it's a public hearing to discuss the changing of the current from elected, it doesn't say that you have to do, we discussed it. And we closed them out, we just closed them.
Yeah, I might be looking at a different document. So we have the workshop public business, right? And the second agenda item is to hold a public hearing to
Right.
discuss. But then on the actual current agenda items, often you will have a discussion and action on,
Oh, I looked.
right?
I don't think we put that on.
Yeah,
the
and
assignments
it's not a
action.
problem. You can just have a discussion and action next meeting.
That's right.
Yeah.
close the public hearing and do it next hearing.
We don't do anything.
So we don't do anything, okay.
Just close the public hearing then. And you may have already done that.
Yeah, we did that already.
They already closed it.
So you'd like an action item on the next agenda?
Yep.
Great. All right,
Because I scribbled
Well,
all over this.
that bit of business is done. Now we're on to an executive session to pursuant to 1 MRS section 4056E to consult with the town attorney regarding the board's legal rights and duties relating to a proposed consent agreement with York Builders and Design, Inc. regarding property located on Fieldside Drive and more particularly described as tax map 032 lot 13. Do we have a motion?
I think you just made the
Yeah.
motion.
Oh, sorry, long day,
Yeah,
long day.
so somebody should second it.
Second. All those in favor? 5-0, we're in.
Have a nice evening, take care.
It feels so special. This is so
I didn't say I moved, I just read that one.